Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 154th live stream from the Misfit Gamer Studios. I am your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. On today's episode, we have another homebrew review for you. We have another submission from Soul Collective Guild. This is a creature. It is a monstrosity called the Sightless Night Seeker. I had no idea what we were stepping into. I was thinking, obviously, something that stalks things at night. I was thinking probably something that's pitch black in skin. Something that like hides in shadows or is even from the shadow plane. Obviously I'm thinking sightless as in like, I didn't really like, think of bats at first, but I was definitely thinking of something that does not utilize sight, but has some sort of extra sensory perceptions. And I got obviously Night Seeker. So that's why I was thinking it was dark because it would hunt you at night. So that's about all I got. But I did quickly see the description, so I guess it's based off of something. So we're going to want to get a quick little review there, or a quick little update on what it's actually based off of. But I guess before that, we have one major update, which is the community stream has been decided.
Yes, very nice. Very excited for that. It's going to be a good time.
So the community stream this month will be Saturday, February 22nd. So what, 3 weeks from now? Or roughly 3 weeks from this week, if it was. Yeah. So 3 weeks, and then we will have that one. And we are currently going to be doing the next episode of subletting subclasses. I'm very excited for that.
Yes,
I am not afraid of doing another one of those. I'm actually really excited. And right now we have a new poll in the community streams channel. And that poll is going to be for which class we are going to do. Right now we have 5 votes out, 3 to 2. And the 2 classes that we're going to be doing, we have the Gloom Stalker from the Ranger subclass, or from the Ranger class. We will be taking the Gloom Stalker, and if you vote for that one, we will translate that for a Rogue subclass. So a Gloom something. We'll figure out. Last time we did the Echo Knight as from a fighter to Rogue, and made the Echo Assassin.
Okay.
So we'll see if we can do a Ranger to Rogue. The other option, if you're interested, is Rune Knight, another fighter subclass, and translating that into Warlock, which I think that would be fascinating.
I like the idea of turning something into a Warlock build, because like you're gonna have to take into consideration the patron and like where that's coming from and why they would be using runes and stuff. So I'm kind of not mad at that one either, and especially because we haven't done like we've done a fighter subclass, but we've also done a rogue subclass, right? So both of them have something on either side, but I like where we're going with this. I like either way we're doing good.
I think honestly Ranger to Rogue makes the most sense because it's going to be the most translatable. I think Fighter to Warlock will be the most fun because it'll be the most challenging.
Yes, agreed.
So right now it is 3 votes for Gloomstalker into a Rogue and 2 votes for a Rune Knight into a Warlock. We'll see where that goes. It has 2 weeks, 13 more days. And you have a chance to vote on that. So get in the Discord. If you're not part of the Discord, link is now in chat. So go and check us out there and let us know what you think. And I believe, did we ping Soul before?
Oh, let me do that.
This episode. I don't see Soul online, and I'm pretty
Soul's
sure
almost always here. So they usually
immediately show up when they see the online ping. So I don't know.
That is all right. We will get them over in here.
That was the wrong link in chat. There's the right link in chat. There we go. Other than that, any other updates? I did some work this weekend, some social media responses.
So yeah.
Were there yesterday.
That's gonna be very cool.
Yeah, I just haven't recorded them yet, but I will. I'll get there. Post them this week. Kage got a sneak peek at one of them. He already thinks that he found a way that we could have done it even better.
I'm hoping so. I need to do some research first, but I think it'll be cool.
Yeah, because if he finds a way to abuse it better, we can make it even better. But we'll see. I'll post it, and if he can find a way to abuse it, he'll make that a comment, and we'll have a good conversation about that.
Heck yeah.
How's your stream going?
We're doing all right. Like I said, last time I was able to get on. I made some significant progress. I finally was able to change background colors, which is one of the big things that I really wanted to do.
That's because you're using a new coding language, right?
I'm using, yes, I don't know if it's its own language or if it's Java just in CSS, but like CSS, you can like change how things get printed, how they're displayed, how they look on websites, but also come to find out, like in certain what do you call it, themes, you know, like you can have like the dark theme or the light theme in most of your programs. Well,
Right.
you can change all the details of your themes in here. Like you can change the header colors, whether they have an underline or not, like all of that cool stuff. So I'm trying to
So it
figure
gets
out.
really granular.
Very much so, very much so. And so like that's what we're looking for. We want to be able to like hone what we like and what we want for our branded stuff, and then we can put our little logo wherever we want to put it. We can lay our stuff out the way we want to lay it out, because I do like the way that Goblin Notebook has things set up initially.
I do like their generalized format. It would be nice to critique it just slightly in our favor.
Exactly. And I think that's exactly what we can do this way, so we can set it up. But
Soul's in chat.
welcome.
Soul made it. Get you those points. All right. And you're still doing those every Tuesday, yes?
Every Tuesday. For whatever reason, some of the people in chat, Soul was with me, struggling through it. I've been having issues with, I don't know if it's my ping, I don't know if it's my bit rate or whatever the case may be. I've been like coming in and out. I had some lag issues. So I'm hoping I can do a little bit of troubleshooting. But if all goes well,
are you streaming when there's other people in the house?
yes.
And do they typically use up a lot of the internet?
Hey, there's always other people, you know, streaming TV.
It could be that. It could just be that.
Games,
it could be a,
doing
yeah,
stuff like
it
that.
sounds like
so,
it might just be bandwidth issues, especially.
yeah.
Vixie and I have always had those concerns whenever we stream together. So far, we don't really cut it, but at the same time, you know, if we're both streaming, we're both only using our computers.
And I'm in the far part of the house, and I'm theoretically on a Wi-Fi extender where I'm at.
That actually might be more likely it, honestly.
If
you're on an
hard.
extender, you're more likely already.
But I did hardline it in. I did hardline the extender in. Like, it's not like using like the actual signal. It's just, although it's receiving. So we'll see.
Yeah, I did
again.
crash yesterday, and I was trying to figure out. I don't even remember what was happening or why I crashed.
During stream?
Yeah, I think I had a crash. I think it was I think I ended up hitting one of my wires, like one of my cables on my desk.
Yep, that'll do it.
So I think that dislodged it from my computer. So yeah, I went off for like 30 seconds to a minute and then had to come back. So that's crazy. But yeah, so yeah, cool. Well, I'm glad that those are still working. I haven't had a chance. I didn't catch the one 2 weeks ago, obviously. But I'm really excited to see what you have, because once I can wrap my head around what you can do, the next stage is like, great, now we can customize it. What's our brand? Like, I absolutely love what Goblin Notebook does visually in terms of how it's laid out, but I know it's not what I want
ultimately
MisfitGamersStudios to look like, but I don't know how to take it from what I like about that to what we're gonna.
What you're looking
I don't
for.
know that next step, and that's that's kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like that's like, how do I even think about what do I want? Like in the sense of like, I know things I don't want.
Sure.
Like, I much prefer older D&D layouts and art to fit 5e. Honestly,
Sure.
I'm not a huge fan of 5e. But also like how 5e digital is. Not a huge fan of like the overly yellow pages and the unnecessary texture, on pages. I know I don't like that. But I know I don't just want white. Like a white background with nothing. Like, so that's what I have to work with.
And so I'm excited to see what I can do with it. Right now, I've been able to change it to like a solid color in the background, which is nice. But I don't know if we want any sort of textures. Like, I like the idea of a background that lightweight has like a cave wall type feel to it, but I don't exactly know how I would go about doing that. So we will see.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I'm super excited because I think once you figure that out, and once we kind of hone in on a generalized design that works for everybody, like works for how you want to implement it and works for the visuals that we're going for,
right?
I think that's really going to be what kicks off the start of like the ADMG and the Monster Mag, like all the things that we want to do and produce. It's like, yes, we're working on the ideas and I'm working on like how I want to like structure some of the chapters, but once we start being able to have like an actual representation of it and being able to put that stuff into something that we can look at, I'm so excited. Like, yeah, being able to actually see those start to come to life. So
yeah, it's gonna be cool stuff. So I'm very excited to see how things develop and kind of snowball after that, because that is what I anticipate. But yeah, it's gonna be good times. It's gonna be good times for sure.
Let's hope for the best. I'm hopeful. I mean, 2 years ago when we started this, making our own book was not on my list of shit to even consider.
But
and
now
here we are.
I'm telling you.
Plans change. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Plans change so much. All right. Well, we have a review to get to today. Let's see. So it's here, so we can actually get things kicked off. I don't think we had any other.
Yeah, I think that was
I
pretty
think it's
much
just
it.
the community stream at this point because we've already done everything else. So yeah. Oh, that's actually what we need. Hang on, hold up. We do have something.
Hold up. Just give me one moment too.
Hold for a moment, chat. I just realized it is a new month, which means y'all need a new community stream. So let me get to the dashboard and let me start that before the stream really gets going. Let's. No, where is it? No, where? Why do I always like mess up where this is? There we go. So February community stream marked as complete. So that one's going to be happening for y'all. So let's get a new.
Back from outer space, friends.
I have to get the new community stream for March.
It is theoretically February.
Yeah, it's the first stream of February, so I didn't think about that.
That's fair. So you're not allowed to donate for the first 2 streams of the month. Okay? Goodness gracious, it's happening too fast. All right. So I will say just a couple of quick caveats to what was written here, Soul. There were a couple of elements that I'm pretty sure I knew what you were talking about, but the way it was displayed, I had some questions, but because I was a slacker and I didn't get to you soon enough, I didn't have time to like check with you to make sure everything was how you wanted. So you might have to correct us a little bit live and in person. So we'll see how that works. But I'll let you know what those spots are when we get to it. I'm pretty sure you'll see it when it happens. But indeed. Community stream. So it says they got 17K they're willing to put in. Well, that's more than it even costs. I'm pretty sure. Was it only 15K we're doing for this?
Yep. I can't change. Yeah, I can't even change the max that they're allowed to donate. That's unfortunate. I'd drop it if I could. But it won't let me. No, that's it. There we go.
That's it. Oh, hey, look at that.
Did it pop up?
Had something pop up.
Oh, there we are. Start challenge. There we are, everybody. 30-day challenge for the March community stream has now gone live.
Started.
Go ahead, get us out of our misery, and just hurry up and get it done, so we can start planning.
Boom!
There it is. The first
out the
2K out the gate.
I told you, you gotta wait, man. Too antsy.
All right, all right. Now that is done, now we can move on. Sorry for the delay. Let's get this review on the road. All right, today we have a monstrosity creature from Soul Collective Guild. This is the Sightless Night Seeker. Again, very interested about this. Sightless Night Seeker just kind of gives me the idea that this is going to be a extrasensory kind of creature, nighttime dwelling, you know, dark skin, being able to hide in shadows. That's what the name gives me.
I feel that.
Now, the thing about the description, though, is all it says is it's a beast created by me. A while ago, based off of Eye Guy. Now, you told me off screen that Eye Guy is based off of the cartoon, Ben 10.
Ben 10, that is correct.
I know absolutely nothing about. So can you give us a brief summary, and don't need to know everything about it, but just a kind of a brief summary of what the source material is.
So basically, as a super brief Ben 10 summary, he's basically got a wristwatch that whenever he slaps it, he can turn into a bunch of different alien creatures.
Oh, okay.
Right? And this is
it 10 of them?
I believe initially it's 10 of them, but to be honest, there's way more than 10. Like, there's way more than 10. There's so many. It's wild. But yeah, so there's a lot of different things to what he can turn into, and this is one of them. And I believe a lot of the mindsets are similar to what you're talking about. Like, this one probably relies a lot more on his sight to do a lot of things than hearing and other forms of assessing, kind of like the opposite of Daredevil. Daredevil reuses no sight and like hearing, echolocation, stuff like that. I feel like this is like, imagine it couldn't hear. Have any of you guys ever seen Tremors?
Oh yeah. Totally.
That old movie. There's a bunch of creatures in there. Some of them only have infrared. Some of them only can sense, like literally have tremor sense. Yeah. So I feel like this is just one where it's like, hey, we got eyes all over our body, so let's take as much advantage of that as possible.
So Eye Guy actually has eyes.
Yes, many eyes. And weirdly enough, they're not placed where you'd normally see eyes. Like, you have the head, and like where your eyes go, that's not where its eyes are. So,
and so does it use its eyes? Are they able to see?
Most definitely.
Interesting, because we have Sightless Night Seeker, so I'm just kind of curious if this is based off a creature with multiple eyes. What does that mean? I'm very, you know, again, words mean things to me. Sure. When I think of Sightless, I'm like, if this is based off a creature with multiple eyes that all work, I'm kind of confused already, but we'll find out what's going on. All right, so we have, it looks like an image. So this image looks interesting. It looks very bestial. Monstrosity, I'm assuming that means it's going to be pretty fucking big. It doesn't have any main eyes, but it does obviously have quite a few. Now, how closely related is this to the source material?
I will say again, the bat wing looking eyes that it has that kind of look like ears where his eyes should be,
right,
is a similar vibe to what I get in Ben 10. And the eyes all over the body is a similar vibe, but outside of that, it is a completely different creature. This is quadrupedal, at least to some extent, almost looking like an orangutan moving around. Right. It's got a tail with an eye on its edge, with an eye on the end, and spines on its tail, which is actually very interesting. So I'm curious if we're actually going to see any sort of play with that tail as we go through. But
So Soul says that Eye Guy in the show can shoot energy beams while this creature cannot. The sightless aspect is more of like a adventurer throw off if they come, to like throw it off, or like if you come across it, you're not really sure because it's just stories.
Interesting.
Which makes sense. Although I would say that now, immediately understanding that, Soul, if the idea is that this creature is named this, like, because you got to think, right? Like, either it was whoever created this thing named it this as a trap, or there's, you know what I mean? Like I can get why things have been named and it's kind of a misnomer.
Sure.
Like, you name it something, and then some people who don't really understand it think of, a different idea. I totally get that, right? However, like, it seems odd that you would have just something that obvious, like, throw people off if it wasn't intentional. So what I almost want to do is be able to justify it via the lore and say that its primary, like, thing, like, in the creature's lore, is that it's known to always, like, eat the eyes of its victims or of its prey. So that's just what it does.
Interesting. Very interesting.
At that point, the name more or less comes from what it does or what it eats, right? Or maybe, you make it the whole lore of that's just how, it's the easiest, because maybe you can even say it, like, doesn't have, like, good, it doesn't have a strong jaw, so while it has strong fangs, or like sharp fangs to cut you, maybe it doesn't have a strong jaw to rip flesh, so it's easier to eat through, like, the soft tissue.
Sure.
So you could add, like, an interesting lore where it's called sightless because it's just known to eat its prey through the eyes, but because it's named that, that's the misnomer that grew, that eventually, adventurers just think that it's sightless, not that it causes sightlessness.
I also like the idea that it might be because it does say it's a night stalker.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be because nobody ever sees it before it kills you.
Or it hunts things that can't see at night, so you're sightless.
Right.
So I'm just saying that, instead of it just being named that without intention, I wouldn't mind having some sort of lore, just a small sentence of it's called this because of XYZ.
Sure.
But it's often mistaken as being sightless. Like, because you could just add that into the lore. If there's why it was named it, it eats the eyes, or it stalks things it knows are blind at night. But then just add in, which is often confused many of adventurer thinking it itself
can't see.
Yeah.
So they're like, what's that dude, Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, who's just like, you can't see me if I move absolutely still.
And then you can even do a cool thing where it's like when the eyes close, like, they're completely invisible. So when it sleeps, it literally looks like it has no eyes. It just, you see these big ears and you're like, okay, cool. Until you wake it up, and then suddenly,
that would be
there's
wild.
so many really interesting things you could do. So
I like that.
That's what it's kind of given me. That is a cool drawing, by the way. So that is awesome. I wish I had.
I feel like. Did you create that, Soul? Like, that? There's no way that's AI generated.
No, he drew it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's absolutely
awesome.
beautiful. I love that.
All right, so let's get into this thing and let's see what it can do. All right, so it's Monstrosity. It's true neutral. That's kind of cool, actually. I like seeing a beast that's just, it's doing its thing. It's just, it's living its life. It doesn't really care. It's based on its mood. You know what I mean? Doesn't want to get involved. I like that. We have an armor class of 16 with natural armor. Okay, so we're not dealing with something like super.
That might be my fault. I believe that should be 17.
Okay, still not bad. So we're not dealing with something, like overly aggressive. This is not your, like, late game struggle boss.
Right.
Hit points are 78. Okay, so we're talking about, like, kind of light and fluffy here.
I apologize again. I did this one, like I said, I was a little bit of a slacker, and I did not do this one as early as I should have. But for clarification, the hit points should be 65, not 75. That additional 12 should not have been added. On the original, it's just 12d10 with a 17.
So it should be 60. So still even so 17 and 65. That's still okay. So this is nothing. This is not a beefy fight.
It's not super
maybe
crazy.
It's an early stage game. Maybe it's an early game thing. Maybe you get a bunch of these at once.
I was about to say, maybe there's a couple. Maybe they hunt in little packs or something like that.
So yeah, he just corrected himself. Sorry about that. Yeah, 17 armor class, 65 health, speed of 45 with a climb of 25.
That is correct.
This thing is gnarly fast. Yeah, this thing get it like a half a dozen that move that quick. These things could get nasty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have a strength of 15, we have a dexterity of 15, a constitution of 12, an intelligence of 15, a wisdom of 8, and a charisma of 8. That's a pretty solid block there, although
High physical stats, low mental stats, save intelligence.
3 15s though. That's pretty. That's I mean, I know that's not like abnormal to see, but
I would like to have seen it really good at something.
like probably the dexterity because of how fast it is and the climbing.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, maybe give it like a 16 or 17 dexterity. I don't mind the strength. Or the I would have probably dropped like the intelligence also. Maybe give the intelligence down to 10. You can even then I would have been okay with that bumped up to like
Sure.
17 for dexterity.
I don't mind one of the mental stats doing something so that it says that you actually have the ability to like think about strategy, like think about like a tiger that knows how to like stalk its prey or whatever.
That's why I don't mind it being at least 10 because at least
Sure.
10's, you know, I mean a peasant can think through tactics, right? Like so I would definitely say like I don't mind it being somewhere, but I don't think it's necessary at 15. You know
Sure.
what I mean? That's yeah. While making this, I genuinely say this. Those were rolled. Okay, not bad, not bad.
Oh, he rolled that. Wild. Okay.
All right, and so we have saving throws of strength, dex, and constitution. Our skills are intimidation, investigation, and perception. Okay.
And for clarity's sake, when I was creating this, I had to recognize that investigation and perception have expertise. Otherwise, there's no way they would be that high.
Okay, makes
So-
sense. So expertise in investigation, expertise in perception.
Which
Okay.
makes sense with all them eyes. Like you're being
Mhm.
able to see all the freaking things.
I guess that's the biggest aspect, right? It has all of the eyes, so those two make the most sense. Intimidation is kind of a built-in like aspect because it's probably like really creepy looking. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
Damage vulnerabilities. It is vulnerable to radiant damage, which again, it's weird that it's sightless, but I get it. So all of the eyes, radiant damage would probably be the most vulnerable. Condition immunities, though, we are charmed, deafened, grappled, petrified, prone, or restrained. That's interesting. I get deafened. Interesting about charmed. You know, with all the eyes, like gaze attacks, you think might be a little bit, but I guess it could just shift its shift its focus somewhere else. So
Sure.
maybe there's more places. Like if you only get one eye, it could just like look at all of its other 20 eyes
Mm-hmm.
and not pay attention. So okay, charmed I get, deafened I get. I don't know about prone. I don't know why it wouldn't be able to go prone unless it's just so agile that it could like crab walk. So even if it goes on its back, it's still technically walking.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? Like it just knows how to like not officially, like it doesn't have an official way to like be
Right. Interesting.
So okay, I can even go prone. But grappled, restrained, and even petrified. I'm not like those are interesting ones to have.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure why. Again, even for me, prone is even still kind of hard because just looking at the design of the picture of the creature, it looks like I said bipedal or not a quadrupedal. Like at least at the very least, it runs around on all fours. Like if you were to like spread all its legs out, you know, and like why wouldn't it be able to go?
Like I'm thinking the only reason why I was giving it that option is because if it is supposed to be super mobile, I was thinking of Voldo from Soul Calibur.
Oh yeah.
Because you know how like basically you can't go prone.
He's
'cause
like
you're
running
always
around on the
walking.
bridge and stuff like that, like
So
doing weird stuff.
That's what I'm thinking is like if you could
Okay, I
justify
can get
this thing
behind that.
has that, I could justify the prone. The grappled and restrained though, it just I don't know why. It doesn't seem so far. I haven't seen anything that would justify why it can, unless it's just the idea that it's so dexterous and strong that you just can't get a grip on it. If it's just that situation of having the two 15s justifies not being able to be held down.
See, again, you're gonna need more than a 15 for immunity to that, just for that. Like, that's my thought process. Like, if you had 20s in there, I can see maybe that's gonna give you immunity to being restrained. But
Yeah, maybe
restrained
resistance.
resistance maybe, but that's a pretty impressive condition, to be
Yeah.
honest.
That's why I was like just questioning why immune. Like because for immune, I wanted to see it baked into something that makes perfect sense, right? Like again, I can understand charmed, I can understand deafened, even though it has the big ears, but it's probably again more of a misnomer.
Right.
It's like, you know, it looks like ears, but they're probably not ears.
So another point is when it came to damage vulnerabilities, there was a second aspect. It wasn't just radiant. He added blinding. And I'm assuming because blinding isn't a condition, or blinding isn't a damage type. It is a condition.
The blinded condition.
There's no such thing as resistances. I added it into the abilities, and we'll go over that in a second.
Like it has a disadvantage, basically.
It has, yeah, it's got like basically blinded vulnerability. So I'm hoping was the intent, Soul. But that's kind of how I articulated it. But I'm thinking that it would be possible to do something like that, like resistance to restrained condition. You have advantage on saving throws against being restrained or something to that effect.
And that's kind of what I mean is I'm just looking at this. I don't mind charmed. I don't mind deafened. Like I get those can be part of it.
Sure.
For resistances, like, you know, again, I wouldn't mind, it being able to save out of being prone because of its abilities. But the grapple and restrained, especially if it's going to be an immunity, I need to know why. Like I need to be able to like understand the lore or its stat block. Like you said, if those were 220s and everything else was trash,
yeah.
I could totally understand that this thing is just too squirrely and too strong. The moment you grab its arm, its other arm's already out of reach. The moment you grab two arms, it's already breaking out before you can get you know what I mean? Like I can absolutely get behind certain things, but grappled and restrained are two aspects and then prone. The grappled and restrained kind of go hand in hand. If you had like spikes on your body, I totally get it. If you were just spiky, I could totally get immunity to being grappled and restrained because who's going to touch you? That right there is totally explainable if you say you're covered in spikes, right? We already talked about it. You're covered in eyes, so why did it already have expertise in perception and investigation? Totally makes sense. It's built into the character build, right? But for those three, I need a little bit more to justify, and I don't understand petrified. I'm not mad at it. I just don't understand it as well.
What about magic? Because like you said, if you were covered in spikes, you can understand that. But that's
but like whole person,
something like that. Even though a whole person is theoretically paralyzed, which is on here. No, it's petrified.
Well, because like restrained, like a rope wouldn't be able to hold you because it would just like cut. You know what I mean? Or you could even say like a net wouldn't hold you because again, it would just like it couldn't really.
Yeah, that's fair because the majority of the ones that I'm thinking of are something like it's not spike growth. What's the one? Vines come up and hold on to you.
I thought that was spike growth. No, spike growth is just difficult terrain.
Yeah. Why can't I think of it? It's a druid spell. I use it all the time.
It's not plant growth.
No.
It's, not vine whip. I don't know. Chat, do you know what he's talking about? I can't remember. Lore as to why it's immune to grapples and restraints. Entangled. So we have the lore behind the immunity to grapple and restraints is because most vendors don't want to touch the goopy eyes, plus the spines and claws are too sharp to utilize an rope. Yeah, so I get the idea of like the immunity, but to me, I would almost say that you should have turned that into a potential aura of frightened, or if you come in contact with an eye, you have to save versus being frightened. Because if you frightened makes you want to go away from it, that would make more sense than it's immune to being grappled, because if that's just assuming that every single player character doesn't want to touch it, right? That's kind of taking away, and building in the idea that it's just like,
and it's removing the idea that you can do something like entangle and use magic to do it where I don't have to touch it. I don't care if these plants touch it. Like I just don't want to physically hold on to it. There's lots of, and the net, if you use a net, is that theoretically grappling you?
It's restrained. I would assume that's
Is it restrained?
I would assume that a net's considered restrained. A net, a rope, that would be considered restrained. Because grappled is more like you're actually fighting against another creature's strength, whereas restrained is like it's a stat. Is kind of the way I look at it. I may not be right. But yeah, so again, condition immunities, I just feel like, it needs a little, that's a lot, so it needs a lot more
kind of reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
Sure.
But otherwise, we have sense. Oh, and the thing is too, we have damage vulnerabilities and straight condition immunities, but no resistances. So again, there's no
damage resistances.
There's no like mid range, right? I'd like to see like a mid range here. But let's see. So senses, tremor sense of 10 feet, so it could feel anything moving around it. I'm assuming that's as long as you're on ground.
So let me read tremor sense real quick. Is it not on here?
Oh, interesting. It has true sight for 150 feet.
That's wild.
That's amazing.
So I'm gonna read true sight real quick because I found that first.
Wow.
A creature with true sight can see everything in its true form, independent of the environment. A creature with true sight can, out to a specific range, see in normal and magical darkness, see invisible creatures and objects, automatically detect visual illusions, and succeed on saving throws against them, and perceive the original form of a shapeshifter or creature that is transformed by magic. Furthermore, the creature can see into the ethereal plane. So if you're using blink on this sucker,
It's gonna
good
find
freaking
you.
luck.
So that again, true sight, having true sight as a baked in thing explains the immunity to charm. Totally get it,
Okay.
right? You literally
see
see
the
right
truth.
through their
Yeah.
bullshit. So again, something I can totally get behind, right? But because of this, the fact that restrained and grappled are immunities, it's almost like we're protecting its greatest asset too much. Because again, if this is a creature that you're meant to, the proper balance should be that I want to go after its eyes. Its eyes are its, its greatest strength, right? So I kind of feel like that's kind of a mark against like the being able to knock it prone or restrain it or grapple it, because again, that's going to be kind of part of the whole deal that you need to do with this thing. So interesting though. I do like Tremor Sense. True Sight. Did you say Tremor Sense? Did you?
I'm looking for Tremor Sense. I have not found.
What's going on in Discord? Oh my God, Jesus Christ, Nugget.
I knew something like that was gonna happen when he was like, sit still. I knew something like that was gonna happen.
Nugget, why do you do these things?
Okay, so a creature with tremor sense is sensitive to vibrations in the ground and can automatically pinpoint the location of anything that is in contact with the ground. Aquatic creatures with tremor sense can also sense the location of creatures moving through water. This ability's range is specified in the creature's descriptive text.
Sorry, I was completely distracted when you were reading that.
No, fair enough. Basically just anything touching the ground, you can pinpoint its location regardless of whether it's invisible or not.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm okay with that. I'm okay with in True Sight. I'm okay with it having built-in True Sight, but 150 feet. Like, does anything have that much range on any normal? Like, does any other, like?
So to be fair, as far as I know, you can still hide behind cover against True Sight. True Sight doesn't allow you to see through things, but Tremor Sense will allow you to see through things.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to think of like, because I'm trying to think of like what other creature I know has any kind of sight that goes beyond 60. Like usually 60 is like the best. 30 is like, you know
anything
what I mean?
From the Underdark has at least 120 feet of dark vision.
Right.
I'll say that.
And that kind of makes a little bit more sense. So maybe 120 feet would just sound better.
Sure.
Maybe it would feel better because it's still within the normal range. 120, like 150 feet just sounds a little, I don't want to put like.
And I get it though. This thing is all about eyes.
Yeah.
Like it's all about eyes. So having it be a little exaggerated in that one specific area, well, I kind of get it.
Here's what I would do is either I would truly drop True Sight at least to 120.
Okay.
But I could also justify dropping it to like 60, but adding in all around sight. That's honestly a trait. That's one of the senses that should have is all around sight. Meaning
all around sight?
It has perception in 360 degrees. It literally has perception in every direction.
So I think 5th edition doesn't really take that into account because theoretically your sight is 100. Like it's not, but it is.
But so the game just treats
the game doesn't like differentiate like when someone's behind you, you can't see them like that. But I would say like, because think about mechanically, like when is that going to come up? Like is somebody sneaking up on you like in their blind spot? Like,
well, but I mean like the idea of being like, again, a rogue sneak attack being behind the character, right? Like truly the character's unaware of you. That's the whole idea. The character has to be unaware of you. So a rogue standing behind a guard who is unaware of the party, this would not happen because this thing would literally just be like, I see in every direction. There is no
So
behind
mechanically, would you say that stealth checks have disadvantage?
Yeah,
Because that's how that would work.
Yeah, I would totally be okay with that. Like, because again, with something like this, I wouldn't mind balancing it out, just making sure that if it's truly all about eyes, let's make it all about eyes. I don't know. The distance is the only thing. I don't mind it having true sight.
Yeah.
That really is just a distance that doesn't feel comfortable.
I'm just trying to think like how that would actually get used, because the only time that's really going to be of advantage for a rogue when they're not within the 10 feet that would be necessary for the tremor sense to take into effect.
Right.
Number one is if they're flying, and number two is if they are trying to do a ranged attack on them, right? And so if they're trying to do a ranged attack on this creature from say 30 feet away, then
because I don't know. I guess that's more of a role play aspect in 5th edition, like you said, because like again, I'm thinking the idea of, even in combat, if you're hiding in shadows and a creature's not looking at you and you come out of hiding in shadows, they still don't see you, right? Like a ranger, right? If the enemy's over there and engaged with like the monk and I come out from a pillar, I get sneak attack because it can't see me, and then I can go right back into the pillar and I'm still hiding. This wouldn't be able to do that because with all around sight, the moment I came out of the pillar, it sees me. There is no I was hiding. The moment I'm out in plain sight, it sees the entire battlefield. That's again, but that's more of the second edition, because second edition does have all around sight. That is an ability you can have.
Then that would just kind of suck because it would nullify. Well, it would still work if you're.
It was like what you were saying. It's like with true sight being behind something. As long as you're behind something, you're fine.
But the second you pop out, then you don't get sneak attack anymore.
Yes.
So the only way for a rogue to get sneak attack against this creature is to have another one of its allies engaged with it. Period.
Or be able to, because you basically line of sight doesn't. Okay, but so again, that would be what I would assume. Like if you could drop true sight down to 60 feet, but say it has like all around sight, which means that it, there is no hiding from it. There is no sneak attacks.
You have to be further than 60 feet away in order to get a ranged sneak attack shot on it.
Yeah, something like that. Like I think that would be kind of cool and a tactical aspect because it makes it feel better.
Okay, I can see that.
At bare minimum, just put true sight at 120 and it will feel better. I think that's my only issue. It's not that it's bad. It's just 150. It
feels like a lot.
It just doesn't vibe. Put it to 120 at bare minimum, you'd be good. Otherwise, drop it to 60, give all around sight, and basically, like Kage said, just add what that means is, no sneak attacks. Like it's, you can even put that into it's not really condition immunity, but immune to sneak attack is not really not like condition immunity, but it's kind of like that'd be kind of cool. I'm curious what you think about this one, because this next one I'm also a little bit confused about, or just a little bit on edge. Language is all, and it has telepathy 20 feet. Now, here's my problem with this: is we don't have any actual lore, so I have no judgment on whether or not this thing is old enough, ancient enough, or has any concept. It does have a 15 intelligence, but where did it learn them all? Right? We have no basis on why it knows them all. But because it has telepathy, I wouldn't mind if it, if languages it says, it can maybe speak like abyssal or, like a certain language, but due to telepathy, it understands any language like you speak to it. You know what I mean? Or because there's that, that thing like with familiars where it understands any language you do.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that, where it's like, I don't know if it should know all languages or be able to speak it, but because of the telepathy, there's obviously some sort of
I would say the way I would do it is something to the effect of it knows any language it's come in contact with, because the only way it can speak, it doesn't have any verbal anything. It only uses telepathy, which is what I'm assuming this means. Anytime it speaks with somebody, it speaks through your mind. And so if I've come in contact with somebody, maybe they just have like an extra ability to absorb languages. And so anybody that they've interacted with that speaks a language that they don't speak, they're able to learn that language or something like that. So that's as close as I can get, because
I get that. Yeah.
It would be weird to just say like it only communicates to you in Abyssal. So if you don't understand Abyssal, you have no idea what it's saying, but it understands everything you're saying.
It's either that or you say language is none, and then it just has telepathy. And the idea is that it doesn't really communicate via language, it just communicates via emotions and images. Because that's a universal thing, right? Like if it's imagining eating you, that doesn't have to be in any language. You can get that across in images and emotions and feelings.
Sure.
Right? If it's scared, you can get that across telepathically without a language.
And I'll say they've kind of started to do that with druids and talking to creatures. So like druids have the ability to communicate with like animals and stuff like that without words, so to speak.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Like
So
you can get vibes from them. You can understand what they're trying to say.
Soul says we'll get an explanation a little bit later down the road of why this is. So hopefully that'll explain it, of why it knows all languages. But yeah, I would say that it wouldn't be bad if this thing is just more of a, just, you know, an instinctual communicator. But we'll see. We'll see if it justifies.
Okay.
And he says it's a CR5. It's kind of feeling like that. It's feeling pretty low key.
Yeah, it's not too crazy, but it's definitely not something you want a level 3 party coming up against.
It definitely feels very, I don't want to say badly balanced, oddly balanced, because it has these really powerful, really seemingly like not high level, but just high power stuff. But it is just kind of like a mid-level minion.
And I'll say on that front, the way I feel about it is that is a specific obstacle for the party to get around, right? So it's like, hey, this one thing sucks. Like there's no way we're gonna be able to, but it's not necessarily something that makes it unbeatable.
Yeah.
Right? So like, I'm okay with that in the sense that unless your entire party is built around that one singular mechanic, like being able to be hidden from this thing and it just can see all the freaking things, like you're not going to be that screwed. Like that party member might not be as useful in this fight as some they may have been in the past, but that's kind of okay. Let the barbarian shine, let the cleric shine, let, you know, the bard shine, whatever.
Yeah, this is, like I said, it's not badly balanced. It's just that awkward balance of like, this is some really cool high power stuff, but it's not coming from something equally as high power, you know? And that's why I like dealing with things that are old and ancient, because like they don't have to make sense in today's world. They're old and ancient from an unknown time. You can have something, you know, that bends space and time, but is, you know, basically like a spider to you.
Weirdly enough, this thing does feel alien. Like literally alien.
Yeah, it doesn't, again, it doesn't feel, yeah. And that's why I'm trying to understand too, of like, how much is this based off the source material and how much of this was converted for D&D? Because that's why I'm like, dropping it to 120 at least feels more D&D. Just 150 just doesn't feel like something I want to see in my game. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem to jive as much with the consistency. But again, we'll see as we read on, because that's only the base abilities or the base skill set. So let's look at abilities. So we have blinded vulnerability. The Sightless Night Seeker has disadvantage on saving throws against the blinded condition. Makes perfect sense to me.
Now, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Soul. Is that what you had intended when you put blinded next to damage vulnerability? That whenever somebody attempts to blind this creature, they have disadvantage because they got so many eyes and it's really easy to blind them.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
So
yeah, let us know. And then we have invisibility. The Sightless Night Seeker, magically Seeker or Stalker? Oh, it's Seeker. For some reason, I thought I said Stalker. Did I? No, maybe I'm just, never mind. So the Sightless Night Seeker magically turns invisible until it attacks or casts a spell, or until its concentration ends, as if concentrating on the spell. Any equipment the Sightless Night Seeker wears or is carrying with it is invisible with it. Interesting. So it's basically just an innate, always on invisibility. How do you feel about that?
Is it always on?
It says that it magically turns invisible until it attacks or casts a spell, or until its concentration ends. It's basically ongoing concentration. As long as it wants, it's invisible. Now, I wouldn't necessarily mind it if it were a thing where like it would turn invisible after so many rounds of not moving. That would be interesting. So like it could like hide in a tree, and then after like a couple, after like, half a minute, it just.
So the question is, when does it become invisible again after it reveals itself? Is it instantly?
I would assume. Well, Yeah, it doesn't say like it needs a, yeah, so we need a trigger. It doesn't have an action. It doesn't say it's an action or anything. It just says it becomes invisible until it attacks.
Yeah, I would articulate one way or the other. I would say, hey, as an action, you can do it, or it's always on and something has to re-trigger it.
I got an idea. What about for invisibility? What if at the start of combat initiative it goes invisible and doesn't come invisible until it attacks? So it's like you come in contact with it and you're like, DM's like, roll initiative. And as soon as everyone has initiative, you're like, it's invisible.
I would say if it sees you first, which is highly likely, it should be able to go invisible.
That's what I mean. Like as soon as initiative starts, it's invisible. So whether that's the surprise round and you say, hey, everyone roll initiative, it's already invisible and they didn't see it first. Or if there's a chance that they all saw it, you say, hey, you see this thing, roll initiative. By the way, it goes invisible. And it has the first move, which means it's probably moved and not attacked. So that's one option, is just let it go invisible at the start of at the start of combat.
Okay.
Like at the first roll of initiative, that would be fucking freaky.
That would be very scary.
And you can even give it a bonus to initiative to guarantee that it goes first, so it can always move and not immediately be shot and invisible goes over. So that's one option.
Okay.
I also wouldn't mind it having just invisibility X times per day per long rest also. So starting the initiative automatically goes invisible for free, and then has like maybe 3 options to go invisible during that combat. Because I like the idea of it going invisible, but you're right. This doesn't have a trigger. It doesn't have a countdown. It needs something for me as a DM and for the players to be able to understand what's happening.
Yeah,
Soul, what did you intend? He said that's what he intended, but I'm not sure who it was responding to, me or you.
I think it was the blinded vulnerability. That's what he was talking about.
Oh, fantastic. That was a few minutes ago. So being invisible is how it understands the languages. It turns invisible and seeks out its target, seeping information it sees, and ultimately showing that it can see vocal waves, which helps it understand.
Interesting.
Hold on, let me reread that. So it's invisible, it finds its target, seeps information, and it can see vocal waves.
See, I thought he was getting it from the telepathy. But...
See, and now this is like breaking a lot of this is like breaking a lot of lore though now, like in terms of how am I gonna, so now this thing's intelligent, now it chooses targets and it wants the information, but what's it doing with it? Like, you know what I mean? Like in terms of like layering this together, this isn't like a supernatural creature that's living off of information. It's, if this were like maybe like if the lore was that this was created by an assassin guild and this is supposed to be like a creature that was mutated and experimented upon and is like the ultimate assassinating machine to where you can give it like information telepathy, like if you can telepathically say here's your target and all it does, like, did you ever watch that movie? I think it was like Red Planet, where they're stuck on Mars with the robot and it kind of goes like haywire, and so it starts like using tactics to like take them down one at a time.
No, I mean the closest I got to that was Danger Will Robinson. What's that one called?
Yeah, that was Lost in Space.
Yeah.
But yeah, so concept of just like you can basically telepathically give this thing a target and all it knows how to do is go after it. And so like if it's with a group of people, maybe it'll like be smart enough to follow it for a little bit. But then you'd have to like give it like the allure of that it knows how to report back, which again could be why it gathers info. But as of right now, the idea that it just wants to choose a target and then get info from it, that's a little bit of a hard thing for me to understand lore wise. And then the scene vocal waves, that's a little bit of a stretch because there's nothing here that really, it's already intelligent and it can already,
I mean, True Sight allows you to see a lot of different like types of waves. Like I wouldn't be upset if you could theoretically see like heat waves and stuff like that. It could like have different types of vision or whatever.
That's fine, but yeah, the idea of learning languages through this is a bit of a stretch for me. I don't really, I don't understand that from a D&D point of view, nor from a High Point point of view would I be able to like justify that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so again, when it comes to the invisibility, I don't mind it. I wouldn't mind seeing some sort of trigger and countdown, but I do really like the idea that if this thing just start of combat, if it gets into initiative, it just poof. You know, or like you could even say this just in case there's an opportunity to like fuck it up. If you're like smart enough, you know, if you're hunting one of these, maybe say it has a certain amount of invisibility, and we give it a trigger and a reset. But what if you gave it as a reaction? So again, if you're hunting this thing, you can give your players the chance to overcome this. But as a reaction, at the start of combat, it turns invisible and immediately sets its initiative to 1.
So I was trying to figure out a way to give this thing
plus whatever. Yeah.
infinite invisibility, because I don't mind it being like a part of this creature's just genetics to be able to go invisible.
Okay.
Which I don't think should necessarily have a cap. So I'm thinking if this creature hasn't taken damage at the end of its turn, it goes invisible.
Interesting. I like
that idea, just because, although it's hard at the end of its turn,
I might have that,
because I would like it to be able to move after it goes invisible. But
that's fair. That's
I want it to be able to like go invisible and move, but I also
okay. So it has tremor sense at 10 feet, but true sight for days, right? So it leans on its sight, right? But it's called the Sightless Night Seeker. What if it goes invisible only when it shuts all of its eyes? And therefore, the only thing it has is tremor sense.
Interesting.
That's the lore. It can close all of its eyes, lose its most important ability, which is its true sight for days. But once it does, it turns invisible, so it's perfectly safe, and it can move, but it can only know what's 10 feet around it. That's it. It can only know if something alive is 10 feet around it, and every time it moves, it has to just be, because again, you have true sight, right? So you can, and he's intelligent.
Mental map.
He probably mental maps the room, closes his eyes, and he's like, I know between here and there's no pitfall, so I can walk that direction, right? And then I can snap my eyes open and snap them shut, and then I'm like, okay, I gotta go. Like, what if that was it? Is its invisibility was tied to its eyes closed, but when its eyes are closed, it loses all of its bonuses.
I kind of like that. I would even be more okay with the 150 feet of true sight at that point.
That would be a way different concept, because then it really has to like map out, that far. Like, that would be interesting.
I'm not mad at that. That's very cool.
So let me know what you think about that. I think that would be a way to balance the invisibility, because at that point, because think about that, right? If it can still hear, like if it still has senses, imagine it finds its target from a distance, right? It's like it's like outside the farm, outside a valley, outside the town, spots its target, tries to get as close as it can while it can see it, and then closes its eyes and then just gets right up on it. Imagine this thing literally stalks you right over your shoulder. It's always within 10 feet of you, eyes closed, just listening for you. And anybody gets too close, it just moves around. That's what, you know what I mean? The Sightless Night Seeker is because literally it's sightless when it's stalking you, because it can only stalk you via tremor sense. After, from far away, the 150 feet, it was able to pinpoint you with true sight and knows exactly where it's. So I don't know why it's still targeting people. You'd still have to give me lore about why it targets things. But I could see that. I could see this idea that it has the hearing and the tremor sense together to just.
I almost like the idea of giving it a reactionary ability to close all of its eyes, turn invisible, and move up to its speed.
Oh, okay. Like as a reaction, it can do this if it takes too much damage, or if something.
Right.
Okay.
And like if you take like over X amount of damage, you can't use this ability on your turn or something like that. But like that would be kind of cool, because I think that could be so. Because if it just turns invisible and stays in the same spot, then it's like
it's going to be too easy for anybody to just swing and miss. I'm glad you're liking it. So again, we totally get that this was like way long ago, and that's why we're kind of having fun with like, what can we really do to make this thing shine? So we're kind of taking a little bit more liberty than we might normally. But
sure.
Yeah, I really think that the idea of tying the invisibility to its sight helps with the name. I think it just helps with the creepiness of it.
Sure.
Like this thing could literally just disappear on the battlefield and then just be right behind you, and you'll just never know. And it just waits for you. Imagine just sits there in between two people and waits for them to split up just so it knows when to attack. Oh, that's fucking creepy. And I still like the idea of at the beginning of the initiative, being able to just turn invisible. Or how about this? Maybe it just has as a reaction, at the start of initiative, it can turn invisible and move up to its speed.
Yeah, and it's its normal ability. It has that same ability, but it's instinctually it uses it at the beginning of initiative.
Right, and it
every
doesn't
single time.
make it it doesn't move it to the first of initiative. It just allows it that when combat starts, it can turn invisible and move.
Yes.
Then it goes into whatever initiative slot it has.
Yeah.
So it's just a bare minimum. And again, if you learn enough about it, maybe you can force it to take its reaction right before initiative starts. You know what I mean? Like maybe somehow you can like set a trap.
Sure.
I don't know how you would do that, but you know what I mean? Like that would be interesting. All right. Okay. It also has, for more abilities, it has keen sight. The Sightless Night Seeker has advantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on sight. Well, we
Sure.
already know that it has proficiency, or it has expertise.
Yep.
So it totally makes sense there. And it's, oh yeah, all of this is still true neutral. Yeah, that's another thing too that's really interesting is, again, why would it have a target if it's true neutral? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like the lore would have been better if this thing was designed by an assassin's guild to like make the perfect assassinating creature. Because imagine being able to have a creature like this, right? Because it doesn't have a language, because it can't speak, because it's only telepathic, but it, like, you know, if we say it doesn't have languages, so it can't really like express anything to you other than feelings and maybe images. Like, imagine the idea that you could have anybody assassinated by this thing and no one would ever be able to pin it on you. It's like truthfully the best assassination machine, because even if they catch the creature, well, there you go. That's what killed it. What are you gonna do? You found your murderer. How are you gonna find out who sent it? Because it can't speak. You can't get information out of it. Oh, it gave you a picture of who sent it. Guess what? The figure was in a hood. So even it saw nothing, right? Well, I guess true sight. But
Sure.
even then, if you cover your face, true sight doesn't give you X-ray vision.
Yeah.
So there's like some layers here that I could see to have a lot of fun with the lore. Honestly, I really like the idea of having this be like either made by an assassin guild, like created, or like comes, like, I don't know, something like that, where it's like the whole thing is like, it's like the perfect apex predator, but it only like hunts like for certain reasons or for every so often, right?
Interesting.
It also has legendary resistances, 3 per day. If the Sightless Night Seeker fails a saving throw, it can choose to succeed instead, 3 times per day.
Cool.
I don't mind that. Yeah, no, that's fine.
I don't mind it.
Again, that feels like a pretty higher level ability for such like a low HPAC creature to have like a legendary resistance.
Although it's wild, like I can't imagine them using it on anything other than the blinded condition, especially because it's so hard for them. Like I would almost say that's the only thing that they can't use their legendary resistance.
They can't use it against being blinded.
You can use it on anything else except for being blind, because it's so hard for you to not be blinded.
You know what's wicked is if you take our ideas that we've said so far, whenever you do blind it though, like if you actually get blinded off, you know what it's gonna do? Close all of its eyes and immediately go invisible. It will still only have tremor sense, so again, it's like basically like a tinier. But again, that's literally you're gonna blind it and then it's gonna be invisible, and you can be like, God damn it.
Although I think that if it's blinded, it shouldn't be able to go invisible.
I think it should, because again, it can still close its eyes, and again, that's what triggers the invisibility. But I think that if you manage to properly damage one of the eyes, like in a way where it can't close, it can't go invisible.
Like imagine if you got an arrow stuck in its eye or something like that.
Exactly. Like if you cut it and it just shuts its eye, that's one thing. But if you actually get like an arrow or a bolt stuck in the eye and it can't close, you've rendered its invisibility until it rips it out. It can't go invisible. I would be okay with that. If you damage the eyelid, like if you rip an eyelid off, it permanently can't go invisible. Like I would be, that's the kind of DM I am, right? I look at it like if the invisibility triggers with it closing its eyes, just make sure it can't close those eyes. Almost like, again, the lore is that the light that goes into its eyes is also like, you know what I mean? Like maybe that's its skin. Light doesn't actually bounce off its skin. Light can only pass through it. So the only way for it to pass through it is it has to go into its eyes first. I don't know, some weird magical physics.
No. I kind of am getting behind that. I don't know. I do think there should be some consequences, especially because it's a lower CR, for it having so many eyes, for it being vulnerable to the blinded condition, like having a lot of what it is surrounded around its eyes. I like the idea of it having pieces of what it's good at going away when you take advantage of its vulnerability.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And so like that's the only reason why I would say it can't go invisible while it's blinded or something like that.
Or on top of all of what we just said, have a set number of eyes, right? have 15 eyes. It loses 10 feet of its distance every eye that you damage.
Oh,
So
interesting.
150 feet, 15 eyes. Every eye it loses 10 feet of distance. If you damage half its eyes, now it can only see 60 feet.
Okay.
I could be behind that.
Okay. I like that too.
So we could work into this idea where if you damage all of its eyes, you truly render it fully blind, you know? All right. So again, legendary resistance. If it has those, I think it has to have higher AC and HP. I think that the legendary resistance means that this should be higher up.
Yeah.
But maybe that's good though. Maybe it's okay to have, again, a weird oddity, you know, have these resistances. That's not terrible to kill.
What a lot of the other conditions would even be.
I feel like the thing though with the legendary resistance at this stage, I feel like it's almost unnecessary because, again, this thing's going to go down so quickly once you get to it.
It's immune to most things that it would need the resistances for.
I think we can drop it. I think you can drop the legendary resistance. It's too low to justify it, and I wouldn't want to make this thing any more powerful. You know what I mean? And again, I don't think as a DM using this thing against the party, I don't think it'll last long enough to worry about the legendary resistance. Like you said, it'll probably only be used against the blinded condition, and realistically, it won't survive long enough for me to, like, in my opinion. So I think you could drop it and still be okay. But we've also added a couple other abilities.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, so action-wise, it has multi-attack. It can make 2 attacks with its claws, which are a +5 to hit, and they do a d8 +2 slashing damage. Sounds pretty normal. Based on how it looked, honestly, I wouldn't mind it having like a single crushing, because the way it looked, and it's a monstrosity.
Kind of like a slam or something like that.
Yeah, because it looked like those. It had like big knuckles. I wouldn't mind it not just having it like that, but I wouldn't mind it having like a slam or something. We also have tail whip. Tail whip. It has a range of. It only has a reach of 5. Interesting. Or range 10, 15 foot. 10 foot.
Oh, so it's melee or range is what it says.
So basically melee. I think it means like melee or like a reach melee.
So it can basically be anywhere between 5 feet and 15 feet.
Yeah,
you can hit targets. Okay.
Yeah, it's not so big you can't hit things close to you, but it's also it has reach. Gotcha. Okay. It does 1d4 +2 bludgeoning damage on hit. On hit, Sightless Night Seeker and opponent roll a DC 14 dex saving throw or be blinded for 2 minutes. So it blinds itself with its tail, and it also blinds you with its tail. That's a little weird. I'm not really sure how that's working.
That is very strange that you and your opponent have to roll this save against being blinded. Although I will say, at least in the image, the tail did have an eye stalk on it.
Right.
But
this makes it seem like that tail is like, or that eye is like the primary eye. Because no other eye indicates that it will go blind unless that's the one that's hit, right? And again, if that's the case, why would I ever want to use tail whip to blind myself?
In 2 minutes? First of all, most battles don't last for longer than a minute. And I would make that a singular minute, and I would also make it save ends. Because I don't know if there's anything in there that says, or if it needs to have something in there that specifically says, you can save out of this blinded condition at the end of every turn or something like that.
And you have disadvantage to the blinded condition even from yourself. So that's a little bit even hard, like self-harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't mind, like, I don't mind the tail whip. I would mind. I would like to see the blinded part like change up.
I at least think it should just affect the opponent, but I also don't think it should be the blinded condition for the opponent.
Yeah.
Like what would be blinding your opponent, especially with bludgeoning damage? I don't know. I think it might be better to maybe knock them prone, or to maybe knock them back 5 feet or something like that. But
I mean, even if you wanted to give it like a magical ability where using tail whip, if you succeed in hitting, you know, like use tail whip on a hit, the target must make the Constitution saving or the Dexterity saving throw, or maybe an Intelligence. I don't know, but make it to where when you hit a target with the tail whip, they need to make a save, or they can't see you for like 2 rounds. Like you basically become invisible to them for a certain amount of time. That's what this thing is all about, right? Is being invisible. So if it hits you with the tail, that's just like a special ability it has where if it hits you with its tail whip, you can't see it. Everyone else can. It's not invisible like the other abilities, but you can't see it. Kind of almost like reverse true sight. Like it just
like how are we saying that is occurring?
Like it's just magical. I would just assume that because this thing's already obviously magical. So
sure. It
would just be like a magical attack where its a tail can kind of like the grunk, it touches you and you can be poisoned.
Oh, okay.
So
but that's literally being like it secretes poison from its skin. That's its concept.
Maybe this thing just has like it secretes like like the eye like weeps, so when it attacks you it can like spray your in your eye.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I could see that.
I mean, hell, you can even go one step further and say that the tail is actually a false eye that secretes a blinding mist whenever it whips. So whenever it just whips, it kind of just like spurts out a bunch of liquid, and if it gets in your eyes, it blinds you for 2 rounds.
Okay.
Again, because we don't have a lore, we can say anything we want about this thing, but if we don't want to make it magical, why not make it like an acid, like a temporary acid that just hurts you for 2 rounds? But again, it's not blind, because that would be the blinded condition, but I kind of like the idea of it becomes invisible too.
Right.
But how do you do that without it being magical?
Yeah.
So multiple ways though. I do like tail whip. I just think, I think you're right. Blinded is just a weird way to go about it.
Yeah.
And especially for both. Why is the tail the only thing blinding my creature?
And why am I blinding myself for 2 minutes without any way of getting out of it?
For a D4 plus 2.
Yeah.
There's no way, right?
Especially because theoretically you can only do 1 tail whip a turn.
Yeah.
And you could do 2 claw attacks, which is 2d8.
Yeah, there's no reason I'm doing the tail whip, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
With the exception of the ranged.
Oh, we have eye blasts though as another ability.
Okay.
So the Sightless Night Seeker can innately cast Lightning Lure. Spell save DC 13, requiring no material components. Its innate spellcasting ability is intelligence. It can use a bonus action to change its damage type between lightning, fire, and cold.
Interesting.
So Lightning Lure is...
Lightning Lure is a cantrip. It says you create a lash of lightning energy that strikes one creature of your choice you can see within 15 feet of you. The target must succeed on a strength saving throw or be pulled 10 feet straight towards you. It does a d8 of lightning damage. It does a d8 of lightning damage if it's within 5 feet of you. So if it's within 5 feet of you?
Oh, so like so it's pulling you close, and if you're already too close, it does lightning damage instead.
It's really I've been using lightning lure wrong. I've been doing the damage no matter what, and then just pulling them. But if it only does damage when they're in, that's
because I think that's the point. It's like if you're 10 feet, I pull you, but if you're already within 5 feet, and there's nowhere to pull you. Kind of like if you think about it in a Soul Calibur, right? There was the dude that could do that. He could like do like the black hole maneuver and pull you in, but you would only take damage if you touched him. Huh?
So I think that was Necrid.
Yeah. But you only took damage if you touched him. So if you were far enough away, he would just pull you close. So I look at it like that. If you're already there and there's nowhere to go, you take damage by being in his presence.
Yeah. Interesting.
So this is the only eye blast ability from the reference that he used from the character from the comic or the cartoon. Main character can use it and do basically any elemental damage type. They specified it's only one of the 3. So again, I wish that we had more built-in lore, because this suddenly now just kind of goes off into another like left field, because where did the elemental damage
other
type,
aspect of this creature kind of goes this direction?
So maybe this is where, again, you can combine the eye blast with the tail whip. So you can either make 2 claw attacks or a tail whip. And when you tail whip, maybe again, you can innately cast blind on the target or something, or again, like do something to where it fits in with the rest of the motif of affecting sight or doing something like that, right? I mean, hell, because it's telepathic, I don't know if like, because I think ESP or Mind Read is still like, in 5th edition. So you could do something like that. If it's all about, getting information, frighten just to get it away. I mean, there's a few different things I think the tail whip could end up doing, but yeah, the eye blast just seems a little out of left field for the rest of the build. But what I would actually if we're gonna make it like an actual magical attack, like you don't want to give it necrotic just because it's weak to radiant. That's not so much a good evil thing. So what I wouldn't mind it is, what if like you could say that Eye Blast did like one of two things. If it's gonna be magical anyway, why not, instead of making it elemental, why not shift it a little bit to more what would feel more likely what this thing is, right? You could either say it casts blind, or if you did want to do like a damage, I wouldn't mind it casting I was trying to think of like even like lifesteal, but that doesn't really fit either, right? Like I'm trying, again, because the whole thing is basically it knowing its complete surroundings. I'm trying to like justify what type of magic would it wield to to also make the lore make sense, that this thing has an amazing amount of sight, it knows all of its surroundings, but so far it really hasn't been doing much other than knowing what its surroundings are.
I have an idea. I don't know exactly how this would work, but the first level spell, Fairy Fire, the effect that Fairy Fire has would be really helpful for this creature. I mean, again, it doesn't really need to like see invisible creatures and stuff like that, but
it already can.
What's that?
It already can.
It already can, exactly. So, but if specifically what Fairy Fire does is anybody affected by the spell Fairy Fire, you have advantage on attack rolls against that creature. So this creature is out here. Whenever, say, it hits somebody with like an Eye Blast, like that creature is the center point, and then a blast goes out from that creature, and any of their allies within if any of their allies within, what do you call it, within a certain range of that creature also get hit with the Fairy Fire. So this like,
it's like a chain. Yeah, that would actually be, Fairy Fire would actually, man, if you
then
put
it'll
that
have advantage on all those creatures that are out there.
What if you tied that to Tail Whip? What if when you hit a creature with Tail Whip, you cast Fairy Fire?
Yes.
So on hit, it casts Fairy Fire on that creature.
Actually,
because that would mean, because again, looking at the reason for Claws versus Tail Whip, that would give me a reason to use Tail Whip, especially if it's a cascading effect. I could hit one person.
10-foot radius. So 10-foot radius from the person that you hit. Anybody within 10 feet of that creature, it now gets Fairy Fired. And then you have advantage on all of those creatures.
I say you do that. Instead of the Eye Blast, just make Tail Whip on hit, cast Fairy Fire. And that just, that's just something that you just get. Like, that feels balanced with this thing.
That would feel like cool.
Yeah, because it's just constantly lighting you all up, and it can just turn invisible. Like, I like that. I like that better than the Eye Blast. Just being able to do Fairy Fire and get advantage on hits. Because again, this thing isn't hitting very hard, and it's not going to take very long to go down. But that thing would be annoying as fuck if it's just and especially if there's a handful of them. Like, that would be dope as fuck. Oh, and then you give it Pack Tactics.
Pack Tactics. What's Pack Tactics? Just
that's they get advantage when they're near each other, I believe.
Well, yeah. When you have more than one of you engaged with the same target.
Yeah. So it's like, again, just getting all of that would make these things really fucking. And then again, tied into the lore, it stays invisible until it gets up near its target, and then it does a Tail Whip first to Fairy Fire it, and then all of its claw attacks now have advantage, which are going to be 2 every round. Like, yeah, that's the tactic, right? It goes invisible, crosses the
that I definitely like. If
you build that in with what we were talking about, right? It spots its target, goes invisible by closing its eyes, gets close to the target with Tremor Sense, and then comes uninvisible by attacking it with Fairy Fire, or doesn't, because as long as it has Tremor Sense, it can attack it without becoming uninvisible, because his eyes would stay closed. So then they light up. And then
it does say you become visible if you attack.
Oh yeah, that's true. So it does, yeah. So still, like, that would be perfect. Is you Fairy Fire it, and then especially if you get them all near each other, it just lights up all of their allies. You go invisible the next round, and then you take position. This thing could be fucking devastating. Like, not devastating as in TPK, but devastating as in you're gonna freak the fuck out.
I genuinely feel like it would be a fun combat, because you have all of these elements that you're having to watch out for, you're having to be careful of, you're having to play around with before. There's elements like, hey, we can't group up together. right?
Yes.
Otherwise, we're all gonna get fairy fired, right?
Yeah, and this thing doesn't hit a lot, but if we can't hit it, it's just gonna slowly claw us down with,
And I do like the idea of the person you hit guaranteed to fail their fairy fire save, but everybody else gets to make a save.
Yes. I 100% am okay with that. Because the cascade shouldn't be guaranteed, but you should because you got hit by the tail.
Sure.
So I think that would be a much better one. Because then again, the tail has tactic. It doesn't feel like it needs a magical spell. For a creature fight, this would destroy my snow serpent. Okay.
Oh, wild. Interesting.
Yeah. I think, again, you could take away the legendary resistance, take away Eye Blast, give Tail Whip Fairy Fire instead, and I think this thing would be beautifully balanced. I still think the other things that we were talking about too, making invisibility tied to something like its eyes, because then it cuts itself off from it's a choice to cut itself off. And again, that goes in line with the intelligence level, right? It knows what it's doing. Giving it the ability to, as a reaction at the start of combat, it can go invisible and move up to its movement. Before battle starts, like, so not like basically a free round, but then it goes back into its initiative slot. I think just those small things would actually make this thing very well balanced.
And there's theoretically nothing saying you can't cast fairy fire on this creature.
Done.
And so when it becomes invisible, it no longer gets to benefit from that invisibility.
Everyone knows where it's at.
Yeah. So because there's lots of ways to combat it. It's not super invincible, even if it has stupid amounts of invincibility. Yeah. No. I'm for sure here for it.
We've thought about it. Don't worry. We've thought about it. All right. So I think this is pretty good. I think it needs a little bit of more care and love in the lore department. I don't know anything about Ben 10. How do you give it a okay, or do you give it a too close to reference material?
I do not think this is super close to the reference material.
Okay, so it won't get a negative there.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty even down the road. It's not horrible. It has a lot of growth and it has a lot of to do. It has some good ideas, but I do think it just needs to clean up. So I think it's just gonna be an even 5. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's not bad. There's nothing wrong with it. I think it doesn't feel quite like D&D. But I think it has a lot of potential, and I think the changes aren't groundbreaking. Like, I don't think you have to rewrite it. You know what I mean? Remove a few of these condition immunities. Change how its invisibility works. Remove the legendary resistance, and remove Eye Blast. Give Tail Whip, Fairy Fire. Like, very small changes. You're not massively rewriting this, and I think it could be absolutely beautiful. Because again, this is a mid tier. So, like anywhere between level 6 and level 12, this is a mid-tier minion. This isn't your standard 1 HP minion that you get 100 of and then you just slap through. But this is something that when you first enter a cave at level 8, I wouldn't mind running into like 3 or 4 of these. If I'm level 12, give me a half a dozen. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be scared to die, but these things are going to be fucking annoying. And that battle, like you said, is going to be entertaining. It's going to be engaging. It's going to be tough. It's going to challenge us all. But at the end of the day, none of us are really going to walk out of there with nearly, losing our characters in a TPK.
Right.
So I feel like this is that mid-range minion. This could also be like, because I could see this as like, maybe not the final battle, right? Not your baby EG, but you know how like you have a mid-tier BBEG, maybe like a general or just something in between like the big bad and just like basically a boss fight, like a mid-game boss fight.
Right.
I could see this being like, again, low mid-tier, give me like 2 to 4 of these at the starting of a cave, or 6 if I'm, up to level 12. Or mid-game boss battle, give him 2 of these like guard dogs.
Oh, okay.
Because these things are basically telepathically linked to him. So basically he's guaranteed he doesn't need a bunch of guards. These things know everything. And they will tell him if there's an intruder immediately. And so you go up against a wizard or a warlock or a sorcerer. I like the idea of a warlock actually, or even like a necromancer. And these are like his 2 guard dogs.
That would be wild.
So just, so you know what I mean? Like a 3-person boss battle, I could see with 2 of these. I could see anywhere from 3 to 5 of them or 6 of them in a pack as a mid game. Or if you do wait to the BBEG, I could see like the room right before the BBEG. You're like walking, you're like, that's the room, guys. That's what he's in. And you're like, you feel a cold shudder and you're not alone. And then all of a sudden, a figure. And the room's like, there's like a dozen of them, 20 of them. This would be a hell of a way to right before the BBEG fight. You guys would probably knock these things out every hit. You'd probably kill one when you hit
Yeah,
it.
yeah, two to three hits and they're down for sure. Because I mean, they got 60 some odd health. Like,
Yeah, so but I mean, you're gonna be slogging through at level 20. Like, you
sure.
could
Oh,
be,
yeah.
that's what I mean. Like right before the BBEG fight at level 20, you could probably handle like a dozen of these. You could probably handle 15 of these.
Oh,
and just
yeah.
literally slice through them. But it would still be that fight of like, the fuck are we about to face if this was right before him? So that's why I like this thing. That's why I'm actually really like hopeful for it, because it has that ability to be like, this is, if you ran into one of these at level 3, you would be hurting. Not, you wouldn't be fucked, but that would feel like a shrug. You know what I mean? And that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, but I feel like this is definitely that mid-tier level that you want to like dial this in to make this one of those combats people remember. Not because they almost died, but because they're going to remember how they beat it. They're going to remember the things that it did and didn't do.
Definitely.
There's a creature in your notes for this campaign where these creatures that are the same CR as a Trask. You might know who he's talking about when they say that it's based off of Ben's one powerhouse Alien X. So they're like a Trask level creature. No idea what y'all are talking about. So that is between you two. Well, Soul, I hope you enjoyed the review.
Oh,
if you do make any updates, make any updates or rewrite that and want to resubmit it, let us know. Otherwise, just post it in the Discord if you do make any updates, because we'd be curious to know what the final looks like. All right. Well, that didn't even take 2 hours. Like that might have been one of the cleanest and quickest ones that we've done in a while.
We got close to 2 hours, 20 minutes till, but it was good. It was good. It was straightforward. There was a lot. There was some stuff that we looked at for it, but again, as Soul said, it was one of their first creations. It was before they really started doing their own like 5th edition like homebrew stuff. So I totally get that. I'm here for it.
Have you checked the Discord?
Yes.
Yeah, you saw that?
Yes.
You saw yours?
Wild.
Honestly, so
absolutely
at first,
wild.
It actually took me a second. So if you actually look at it, right, and you see how your hat is in your picture,
yeah,
like the little cut off of the orange hat. I didn't recognize that this was Deadpool at first. I thought it was Iron Man. Because the way you were looking down and the way that your brim was, at first I thought
I did think it was like a helmet type deal.
Because the way that the other hat, the head of Ryan Reynolds goes around yours, I was like, is that the Iron Man suit? That's actually kind of dope. And then I'm like, no, that's not the Iron Man suit.
That's his cancerous head.
Mine's absolutely ridiculous. Oh my god, mine's so ridiculous.
They're both ridiculous. You guys are wild.
It's like, again, like I like, this is the kind of stuff that I thought we'd have to get like a subreddit community to see. I did not ever expect that to happen in the Discord. I thought this would be stuff that would only ever happen if we ever got to the point of getting like an actual community on Reddit, because that's usually the kind of things that I see from like other people's like Reddit recaps and whatnot, is people doing like random ass memes. But that's gonna be crazy. Yes, absolutely update it and post it in the Discord, so we would love to see that. All right, so other than our review today, what's going on? So did we get any more updates on the community stream? No, still at 5 votes. Has 2 weeks. We'll see what's going on there. Usually, honestly, I mean, I would say we only get between 6 and 8 votes on average anyway.
Okay.
From polls, we rarely ever get more than that.
Fair enough.
That's probably what it's going to be after the next 2 weeks. It's probably just going to sit there. Did you vote?
I have not voted yet.
You and Vixie usually turn the vote when you two get in there, because you two like to put your... So we have 3 votes for Gloomstalker and 2 votes. You and Vixie have not voted. And there's still so many other people who have not voted, but most of those people don't vote. And I don't know why. It's so funny. There are some people who are addicted to the polls and just always want one. And then there are other people who are like, I'll watch whatever you guys do. And it's like, hey, that's cool. I don't mind it. But
either way. No, that's good. That's very good.
And then this Friday, I think this Friday, what I'm going to do is I want to do another history of. It's been a while. I'm going to do the history of that we were supposed to do last week, and then I changed my mind to do the build breakdown. And then I couldn't because updates, streaming, and then we did that on the weekend. But let's do the history of enchantment or enchanting. I want to really talk about the history of how enchanting has worked over the additions, because my understanding of enchanting is vastly different than what it is now. And I think that would be a fascinating understanding, is to look at magic in a different way. We talked about the history of magic, we talked about different types of magic, but I really want to get into this aspect of what it takes to basically create magical items.
Okay, that is going to be good. That is going to be very good.
So that's what I mean by enchanting, like an actual like enchanter and making magical items, making them do. Why does a wand have fireball 3 times a day, right? Why does this dagger do lightning damage when you crit? Like those things.
So
right?
I'm going to be curious how you tie that into artificers, because in 5th edition, artificers just get to make magic items.
And that's why I want to look at the history of it. I want to see how it got there, because my understanding is, yes, artificers have a much more keen understanding of magic flow and how to make
Specifically
items
with
work.
items and stuff like that. But yeah.
But the difference between that, I would just always look at it as from the difference between, just like why a mage and a sorcerer and a warlock, all 3 can cast magic, but for different reasons. So a wizard who makes a magical item is going to make it differently than an artificer.
Okay.
It's just simply understanding, one's putting magic into it, one's taking things that have magic potential and bringing it out. That's how I imagine it, right? When I think of an artificer, because I don't think of an artificer as someone who knows about magic. They pick up pieces and they say there's something in here and I can feel it. And then they go, if these things are put in this order and with these materials touching them, and if I do these certain things, right? Like to them, it's science, it's tinkering, right? But to the universe, it's no different than you making a potion and adding in all of the ingredients step by step in a certain direction, right? Like a spell has to be said with certain verbs, with certain words, certain emphasis, certain hand movements, has to have a material to feed off of, right? That to me is the compacted version of what artificers are doing. They're basically doing what spells are doing in seconds, artificers just do over a weekend, right? All of the tinkering, all of the things they're doing is putting the magic in the world together in a way that it does something, right?
Right.
Like the magic, when these 2 items touch, you've created like basically a magical circuit that at the end of the day, the magic just naturally flows like this, right? Like how we mastered electricity, realizing that if you put certain types of wires and certain types of components together, you can control how electricity flows. That's all, in my opinion, artificers are doing, is they feel magic and are like,
I understand it.
Yeah, I just intuitively learned that if I put all these things together, this is what happens. Whereas a mage couldn't do, a mage can't take random bits and pieces and put an item together and it's a magical item like an artificer. But what a mage can do is take a very valuable, very a very strong materialed item that resonates with magic very well, and it can imbue it. It can shove magic from the elements, from the outside. It can take all the magic from the outside world, pull it in and shove it in here because it knows this gem can hold it. This wand can hold it. So I can take this energy over here and I can shove it in there, and when it's released, it will do this. I can do that as a mage. But an artificer doesn't do all of that. An artificer says, hey, this piece and this piece, they have magic that works together. But I need this, this, and this, and now I need to tinker with it until when they all touch, they do the thing I want.
Right.
And then I need to make a mechanism, and I'm whatever it is, but now I need to make a mechanism that triggers that. Whether it's, a lever that makes 2 items touch and then it does the series, or, again, the idea is you think of machinery. But in reality, all I look at is artificers just, they're the circuitry guys, right? Wizards are more of the software. They put the software together because they pull the resources from from everywhere and put it into a software, and the software is what does all the work, right? The artificer is like, if I put all the right components together, the computer turns on. If that makes
no, I get you.
It's a very difficult analogy because hardware and software, 2 different worlds. But
yeah.
Again, the idea just being that.
But that's also the point, is that they are 2 different worlds.
Exactly. So that's the way I like to describe artificers and other magic users is artificers. It's not that they don't know what they're doing. It's just for them, they're not controlling anything. They're kind of following what it can do, right? They're not saying, I'm going to create this and therefore I'm going to force it to do it. They're like, I want this to happen. So what will get me?
Like building Legos, not whittling.
That's fantastic. I like that. Building Legos, not whittling.
Okay.
I like that. That's a good way to put it.
Have the pieces already there rather than just creating something from something completely different.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I like that. All right, so we will go over the history of enchanting and see how that's changed, because enchanting to me has always been fascinating, because I'm from the mindset back in the day where that was a spell you had to learn, and essentially the enchantment spell was originally, the idea was you would find something that was valuable enough, right? I always had to have a high enough value, but I always equated that to essentially its durability. Higher value means and not necessarily physical durability, but the ability to withstand what the magic was going to do to it, right?
Right.
Higher quality gems mean that they are a higher purity. Higher purity means that they're structurally more sound.
Better conductivity, so to speak.
Exactly. So originally, you would learn the enchantment spell, and essentially that was just the beginning. The enchantment spell would open up the item that you wanted to enchant. Like, the idea was that you would cast this great spell and it would essentially peel open the magical potential of the item. And as a wizard, especially because you have memorization, here's where the fun trickery would happen, because you can only do so many things, right? You had to memorize them and do things in a certain order. So you had to have all your stuff already prepped, had to have your item prepped. You would cast this opening spell, right? The idea that this one spell is kind of like a code, where you know how you have to like open bracket and then close bracket at some point, and then it does everything in between. That's basically what the enchantment spell was. It was a open bracket, rip this thing open, and all it was an open bracket. And then you had to cast other spells. So you basically started casting a spell and stopped, opened up the item, then proceeded to cast a whole bunch of other spells into the item. Then when you were done, you finished your first spell, close bracket, closing the item. And therefore you now had an enchantment. But again, you only got to enchant things like temporarily. Like, that's why most things have like, items that have certain charges but aren't rechargeable.
Yeah.
Those are the first time you get to learn enchantment. I open up a wand of value. I throw fireball into it 3 times because I can memorize fireball 3 times, right? That's just my memorization. So I was able to memorize enchant and 3. So I had 4 memorizations, right? So I'm a pretty low level wizard. Boom, 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 and I close it. Now I have a wand that can cast fireball 3 times. But guess what? I only cast fireball 3 times. So it only has the magic for 3. So once it casts all 3, it's no longer a wand of fireball. It's just a fucking wand.
So there is an anime that I was watching a while ago. There are parts of this anime that get real weird real quick.
I love it already.
But there was this element. So the anime is called Jobless Reincarnation. I don't forget what the actual name is. It's super weird. But Jobless Reincarnation. But there was this in a lot of anime, they have people who get like reincarnated or like pulled over from different worlds or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
And this dude was trying to figure out how to get back to his original world. And this world has magic, and a lot of the times they get summoned here through magic, right?
Okay.
And so they were trying to like basically break down these spells and like do different things with them. And they just kept getting stuck on like how to actually accomplish this. But eventually they recognized that, because the majority of the time, kind of like in Full Metal Alchemist, you have like your circle, right? Your circle
like
that like is like the foundation of the magic, and that's kind of like your magic circuits. Well, they had been using these magic circuits in a 2D format the entire time, and they finally had the idea to make it 3D and like somehow like connect these circuits in layers to do different things. And so I really like the idea.
That's basically that's very much like the concept of spell crafting. I'll talk to you about that out of for High Point. That's basically what spell crafting is. It's learning enough about magic to understand why, when you and him and her and everybody else casts fireball, why does it always look the same? And why when you cast firebolt, it looks different. And why when you cast firewall, it looks different. They're all based on fire. They're all coming from the fire elemental plane. But why are they? So learning, if I break out all of those spells, I can find the sentence that says, or the code, look in library, fire plane, essentially. Like, so if you could look at all 3 of these spells and find the portion that specifically directs it to pull from the fire plane, and you're like, wait, so all of these say this line of code says go to directory fire plane. Well, what if I said go to directory water plane and I recast the spell? Well, guess what? If you know spell crafting and you can learn that, guess what? Now you can make wall of water. You can make water bolt. You can make water ball. Because the idea is if the rest of the spell gathers magic from a certain location, so right? So one part of the spell gathers magic, one part of it tells it where to get it from. The other part tells it where to store it. One part of the spell tells it what it's doing with the magic, and the other part tells it what, how to release it. So if you will learn every category and you learn enough about magic to understand what each code means, and you know what other code is from other spells, that's the logic behind spell crafting is, well, why can't I take the aspects of that spell, swap out the code that I know it basically says the same thing. And now granted, there's more nuance. It's not a one-to-one, otherwise everyone would do it. But that's the idea of why in High Point, creating your own spells isn't difficult. It's just more of understanding, like what we've talked about, why spells are abundant. Why is Fireball so easy? And why is it so abundant? Is because it's the easiest form of that, because it's the most easiest, less complicated code. So you might want to change it, but maybe there's a complication with using water. Maybe there's some kind of complication in the code of using air. Maybe there's an error that no one's learned how to fix yet.
How I'm just now having this idea because I love this type of gameplay exploration. If we were to do an episode where it's almost like metagaming, but also gaming in High Point, where a character like starts doing stuff like this, starts building things, starts just to see what that process in High Point would look like, and actually like building out stuff in the world, very differently.
Hey Cards, what's going on? Nice to see you. Thank you so much for the follow.
Yeah,
appreciate you.
But
I would be down to do something like that. I wouldn't want to do it just like I'm always down to do sense. I'm always down to do High Point histories like this. I'm always down to metagame and talk about how certain things would go about it. But obviously, if we are creating things, I do want to like have a purpose for it, right? I don't want to create things just to show off how we create things, because that's, again, you got to remember, everything I create, I have to keep in mind and have to keep control of.
Yes, exactly.
It's good to see you again too, Cards. Hopefully you had a great weekend, and I hope that you have a good week ahead of you. Yeah, so I would definitely be down to do that, whether or not you want to have a character of yours start diving into that, or if we just want to metagame and talk about hypotheticals. Hypotheticals we can talk about all the time.
Sure.
You really want to build something.
I mean, like I do, because like I'm the type of person, like if I'm gonna spend that much time doing something, I like to see what I'm getting out of it, like what I'm building, what I'm creating, like see it get some play. So I don't know, it would be very like I would.
So maybe we can do a new series like on Fridays where it would be like what we call it, like, I mean, because it could either be like a High Point histories if we're just metagaming about what's already in High Point, but if you want to talk about like adding things into High Point, we could do a series of like High Point creations or something, where we could discuss what you would like want to see or something I already have, and we can go through like the process of creating it, the process of like, going through all of the layers and figuring it out.
So I was thinking
what would
about
be done in game versus out of game, things of that sort.
Truly a fireball, but like a water fireball. Like how would that really be effective? Like what kind of damage would that do? But then I thought about, okay, the idea that a lot of people have when it comes to shape water, because you can take a certain amount of water and you can freeze it, right? But you can't theoretically do that around somebody.
True. And technically there's also another misnomer that I was actually researching over the weekend, where there is actually verbiage in there where a lot of people say, it's like, well, I just create water over someone's head and then drop it on them, right? Technically you can't do that. You can't create just a pool of 10 gallons. When it's created out of a container, it only can be created as rain.
As rain?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a 2024, because I was just reading it from this weekend, but it may have been a new addition from the 2024 rulebook now. But
it probably has to be.
But yeah, the idea now is that it's now defined as, if it's not in a container, you can either create 10 gallons of water in a container or as rain.
You can cause water to form into simple shapes and animate at your direction. That's one of the abilities of shape water. So that
water.
Right. This is the cantrip that they're talking about. So
yeah, shape water though. I was talking about create water. I think I was create and destroy water is different. Yeah, create and destroy water is what I was thinking.
So shape water is the cantrip that people are talking about because you can do this in a 5-foot cube.
Yeah.
And a 5-foot cube is pretty decent sized. And when you freeze a 5-foot cube of water, that mess is heavy. So if I have a 5-foot cube just sitting over your head and I just drop it on you, like,
well, I'm thinking of create and destroy water. I'll have to look more about,
because that's like a bunch of gallons. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm trying to think of. Like, yeah, so I would need to look that one up too, because I really have a feeling like, again, it's like, again, it comes down to that like raw without lore kind of thing, where this is just people abusing the fact that because it doesn't say something, I can use it, whatever. Like, again, it's just that whole thing of everyone just wants to be able to have like a guaranteed win out of it. Like, everyone just wants to be able to have the absolute best outcome instead of use things the way they want to be. They were designed to be used.
I would have some rulings when it comes to this. Like, if I were the DM, I'd say you can freeze water that's a part of a body of water, but you can't freeze it out of its body of water. Like, you could like shape a little rainbow bridge over like a running, like over running water,
like a frozen bridge,
like a little frozen bridge. So you could like walk over a lake, but you're not gonna just like pull a cube out, freeze it over someone's head, and then drop it. Like, you could freeze something in a cup if it's already in its container, but like there would be some limitations. But yeah.
But yeah, so going back to the idea, I do like the idea of doing some sort of like high point creationism, like where we talk about like how things evolve and how things like get set up, or actually build out things to add to high point. I do like this idea.
Yeah.
How we go about doing it, because you were talking about earlier about like, you know, theoretically just coming up with an idea, almost like what we were doing now, right? Or what we talk about like for the reviews, right? How high point would do it. Maybe it could be, because that would be hard to do a single topic. Maybe it could be like a lightning round almost, where like you or chat could add things, or even in the Discord, we just have a list of things of like, how would this work in high point? How would you build this out? Or if someone wanted to make this, how would they go about it in high point? And that would be kind of fun, because then I can actually take real life examples and we could actually walk through like how I would walk a player through doing it.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that those things are going to be created, right? I could just talk about it, but it will still have to be done if people want it.
Got you. Fair enough.
So I kind of like that. Maybe we'll work that into some new Friday series.
Yo, I've had a creation that Dobbs has been trying to make for the longest time. He just hasn't been in a place where he can realistically go do it.
True.
But like, he so badly needs to find those freaking metal benders, bruh.
Yes, you do.
Freaking metal benders, bruh.
Yes, you do.
Maybe I'll do that after I'm done with this conversation.
Maybe. We got to get back to that conversation. You need to figure your shit out. We need to get you that level 10 bump.
Yeah.
Get you there. All right, y'all. Well, that gets us past the 2-hour mark. I think that's going to be us for tonight. So thank you so much. Oh, did we get what is Soul's new average before we go?
That should be in Discord now that I added it to new average is 6.
It's flat 6. Okay, so Soul has a flat 6. And what can the good audience people out there, what can they look forward to next Monday?
Ooh, that is a good question. Let's see. All right. Well, it looks like it's another Pokeniner subclass, and I believe this one is going to be the Appraiser, an Artificer subclass.
Subclass called the Appraiser. It sounds more like a background. Okay, I'm really curious what that's going to be. Part of me just kind of wants it to have like vicious mockery. It's like how like the Appraiser of just like being able to like look you up and down, and then just like vicious mockery, like your whole outfit.
Trash.
Yeah.
Trash.
It's like, where'd you get that? At the copper store? Don't talk. Don't talk to
Shh.
Shush. Who did your aunt make those shoes because your parents couldn't afford it? Shush.
Wild. Just wild.
The Appraiser is just a sassy bard who just is the fashion police on everybody. I love that. All right, so we have the Appraiser, a subclass for next Monday. And this Friday, we have the History of Enchanting. That is the enchantment of items. I'm really fascinated about this because, yeah, the idea, I love the old way of enchanting items, having to like think about it, how much, the item could have into it, what you wanted to put into it, how you could make things permanent. Because again, like I was telling you, there was one way to enchant things where they would have something temporarily, or you can give them like just a general like a +1, or you could give them things that recharge, and then there were ways to go about that. Spell crafting has a lot to do with it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Spell engineering is another aspect too, where that just goes more into like the artificer of the wizard world, where spell engineering is actually crafting things from like the ground up versus just being able to modify. Aggressively swearing while critiquing your outfit and yeah, there we go. I like that. Heart says, what's there I've been on the inspiration? Sure. Interesting. Hey, Cart, send that over in Discord, and I will have more time to go over it and give you some feedback. That, or bring it to Friday's stream, and we will have more time since we're closing up now. I want to put some thought into that. So either bring that to this Friday's stream, and Kage and I will be able to address it. We'll have plenty of time to do that, or post it in Discord, and I will check that out. Because yeah, that sounds interesting. Decker is such an interesting character. I really like. That made me really think hard.
Decker?
So Cart came on one of the, my solo streams and presented a really unique idea about how I would do something in High Point. Very similar to what we were just talking about, where people can like actually give me ideas of like how would this work in High Point, and actually Cart did the very thing, where wanted to know how I would rule if someone got their hands on the deck of many things.
Okay.
Pulled the wish card.
Okay.
And full on did a genie move and wished for the deck to have sentience. So you now have a sentient deck of many things.
Does a deck of many things exist in High Point?
Of course.
Is there only one?
For most intents and purposes, yes. It's not like you're ever gonna like. There's never gonna be two in the same shop. Like,
Sure.
there isn't just one in all existence. But
So theoretically, there are more than one,
yes,
but you're never gonna have two in your hand at the same time.
the likelihood of that is astronomical. I mean, you'd basically have to be a god to even consider that.
Could you wish for two of them?
Why not?
Anyways,
So if you want to see that, you should go watch that. I forget what episode.
okay,
Cart,
no, that's very interesting.
do you remember what was I playing games on that episode, or was that last Friday? Were you here last Friday, Cart? I think yeah.
Well, last Friday you didn't stream. It was
Or not last Friday.
the one before that.
So which yeah. Oh yeah, and the only reason they did it is because the dude they were really pissed off at the merchant who had the deck, and they were just like, the party was really mad at them. So one of the players just out of spite was like, "Fuck it, I'll pull a card." Got the wish spell and was like, "Fuck it, it has sentience. Bye." Like, I wish it to be like basically free, kind of like reverse genied it, and was just like, I wish for it to. So just to fuck with the merchant, it was just like, hey, your most prized thing, it's gone.
Now has its own.
It was a gaming stream. Okay, so it was probably me over the weekend on a gaming stream. You'll have
Okay.
to find out when Cart was here first. Actually, I can look real quick because I can super secretly look at people's messages.
And to answer your question, so I saw you posted in there something about a subclass your DM is making, and the only thing I caught in it before I lost it in the thing is that it had a 15 intelligence requirement for a barbarian subclass, which I find very interesting. But I'd love it if you're down to post whatever you posted in here in our home brewing section. I'd love to take a look at it and tell you what I think.
Yeah, it was on the,
'Cause that would be a 13 requirement. Okay, belay my last.
the stream was the 24th. So
The 24th?
This was not last Friday, the Friday before that.
Okay.
What was I doing that Friday? What stream was that, everybody? Not last Friday, but the Friday before. Kage wasn't here.
Oh.
That was the 2 Fridays that you were not here
Yeah.
back to back. What were we doing on the 24th? Let me
This is lightweight. Why I wish. the stream names had numbers attached to them.
High Point Histories. I was doing.
Oh, it was another High Point History.
It was
okay.
it was High Point Histories number 2. We're talking about.
I definitely got to rewatch that just because I love High Point Histories.
What were we talking about?
Dragonborns. Was it Dragonborns? No, it wasn't Dragonborns. I was here for Dragonborns. Was I here for Dragonborns? I was here for Dragonborns. Because we did the High Point Histories just before
on stream.
I left.
Goes correctly and the groups agree to it. Then I feel it would be. This is that one I wasn't really happy about. Describe your character. I was talking about my character sheets, track of levels, the evolution of my character sheets.
Okay.
It was full of.
I remember that.
Most of your
well,
stats.
I don't remember that episode. I do remember the evolution of your character sheets,
It's not
though.
so much that harm you or screw you over something. I think that's how I would rule it, especially off of a wish spell, because so it's actually pretty early on. It was actually he hit me with this like right out the gate.
Okay,
Like,
nice.
That would count as two locations. After that, I just really curious to do that. I talked with him about it. We'll say I'll give you this link here, so copy for correct time. So I'll give you just the straight link, just so you can quickly go over this. So this is just starts right when Cart tells me about Decker for the first time, and that's how I would do it. So if you just want to know how I would rule like the
like
deck
that.
of many things,
Having
it's right
sentience.
there. That was a fun one because I just was like kicked off the stream with a really good like comment of just like, oh,
love that.
Oh, let me really think about that wish spell, because then I had to really break down like it was actually really cool because why the wish spell mattered, like where it comes from would actually dictate like how I would go about doing it, and what features and aspects and how much magic would be used.
Is there an element in High Point, like in 5th edition, where every time you cast it, there's a chance you can never cast it again or something like that? Or is it?
There are some limitations in areas of magic that do have the chance to only be a one-time deal, or you can mess
but
up
not
so
specifically
badly.
the wish spell.
It depends on the type of wish spell. Depends on where you get it. There's a ton of different ways you can get a wish. So, like the wish spell itself, like the actual like spell, yes,
Like a wizard spell.
yes, that one, the way that it was written, again, the coding of it, basically, again, because that was done by mortals, it's kind of a byproduct of the mortal limitations. Again, at least for in High Point, I reference it back to the 3 Great Wars and limiting powers. That was like, this is the peak of mortal power of being able to write the wish spell down. So with that, there is the simple fact that you're dealing with power so great that it can scar you, and that scar basically cuts you off from that level of power.
Now, you know how you can wish something from a genie and they'll mess with it? When you cast the wish spell, because you know what you mean, can it be messed with?
Oh, of course, absolutely. Should be 100% by every DM.
No, but I mean, like, if you're talking about writing down a very specific spell,
it can still be messed with. It can still be messed with. I personally myself change how I mess with it depending upon how you're getting it. The spell will mess with it different than a goblin.
So, but I'm talking specifically the memorized
wish
the wizard
spell. Yes.
So
that can.
How theoretically, how does that explain if this is just like Fireball, it's cast the exact same way all around the world, right? 2 people wish for the exact same thing. It's very possible that they could get 2 different outcomes.
Correct.
So how consistency does that work?
A lot of it has to do with, like, again, if we're talking about like if 2 people wished for the same thing worded the exact same way, a lot of it will be more based on who is making the wish, right? Like, magic doesn't know anything. In my opinion, magic itself isn't intelligent.
Yeah.
So it's all about intent. But a lot of that intent comes from who you are, right? A paladin and a warlock and a fighter and a rogue could all say the same wish, but what's going on up here is really what's going to undo it, right? an evil sorcerer that says, I want to end all war, and a righteous paladin that says, I wish there's no war, and an evil lich that says, I wish there's no war, mean completely different things, right?
Sure.
The ideology behind it. Now, magic isn't smart, so magic's only going to do as best it can with the intent it's being given. Now, like I said, the wish spell won't have, like when I say I'll mess with it, there will be no intent behind the mess. I will mess with it from the point of view of you are dealing with magic that A, mortals can't control, and B, is doing its best. It's like a computer program, right? Written as or working as designed.
So you will say it is doing its best.
It is doing, it's written at, like any code, it's working as designed. Now, your intent for what you designed may not, it may not
manifest the way that you particularly envisioned it, and which I get.
But but again, the effect may not be evil. Now, granted, if you're dealing with a djinn, a god, if you're dealing with something that has its own intelligence,
right? But I'm specifically
how it messes with it.
No, I get that.
I will input that intent. But when we're talking about just a magic spell, when we're talking about something that is solely started and ends with the caster, the only thing that's changing it is the caster itself. The magic is going to react to that. And this is how I keep things unique and dynamic, right? Because if you say, I wish for X, and person over here says, I wish for X, and the exact same thing happens, that to me feels like then the spell itself is like predetermined based on the words you use. For me, it's more about your doing the wish spell. What does it mean to you, right? Like the idea of, I want to be the richest person, right? You could say, like, again, how about this? Two different people could say, I wish to be the richest person on this planet, right?
Sure.
One person becomes an emperor with 90% of the planet's gold in their reserve. The other person meets the person of their dreams, has a family, it becomes a mayor, gets to save a forest from extinction, gets to become an ambassador of their favorite like elven community that they thought they would never even be able to meet. You know what I mean? What does it mean to be rich?
Sure.
So that's what I mean by, if you are going to use the wish spell, the absolute memorize, I'm just going to wish, and say something like, I wish to be...
But see, that to me isn't messing with the spell. That is manifesting the spell based upon the individual's intent.
But that's what I mean by messing, because when you give me the wish, you can only give it to me in the words, right? Now, you would probably tell me as a player, like, this is what I mean, and I might even ask you that. But again, if you say, I'm going to say, I wish to be the richest person on the planet, and you could tell me, metagame, that means I want the most gold. I want to have the most physical riches. You could tell me that, but I'm still going to look at it as in, how is this spell going to manifest? It may not be, you may tell me, I want this to be in jewels. I want nothing but jewels. That's what's in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I will still take that and do the best thing that makes what makes sense for the magic to get to that goal. But it may not exactly just be, now you just have all of the gems in the world, right? It may be that you become an emperor in a jeweled castle that literally took all of the jewels of the nation to build. So now you are surrounded by your wealth, and your wealth is solely because you took it all out. Like, again, could be a way. You still got exactly what you wanted, but it's going to make the most sense. And like I said, the wish spell is only going to make sense in the time and place that you cast it, based on the person that cast it. When there's no other outside influence, and again, time and place, where you cast it, assuming that, you want the spell to take place right then and there, it's going to do its best to path of least resistance. This magic spell can create things out of thin air, but if it doesn't have to, like if you say,
I'm actually interested in that. Like if you cast the wish spell and theoretically nothing happens immediately, but it's something that might happen over time, like how likely is that to be the case versus something else? Like if I wished for 10 gold coins, that's not a lot. Would 10 gold coins just magically pop into my hand? Would they get created from nothing? Would, you could mess with that.
Oh, yeah.
But
or maybe it's that nothing happens and you leave here and a cart rolls by and a sack falls off and you pick it up and there's 10 gold coins inside. That can be how the magic does. Again, if you are in high point, this is how it works, right? I'm going to take into account, if you wish for 10 gold coins, and you're on a very common trade route and there's commonly people passing by, it's more likely that the magic is going to find the path of least resistance and have someone drop 10 gold coins. That's easier for the magic to do than to magically create 10 gold coins out of thin air, right? The magic can, if you said, I wish for 10 gold coins to magically appear out of the air, it can do that.
It's theoretically possible with a 9th level spell. I mean, you got Fabricate. Fabricate can do that, and it's probably not even a
But you also gotta understand,
spell.
When I say, like, again, it's all baked into High Point. The wish spell is not intended for mortals, right? This is beyond mortal control. So when you look at how gods and how raw magic is controlled, it's all about path of least resistance, right? It's not intelligent, but just like a river isn't intelligent, it's still gonna go downhill. You know what I mean? A river's still gonna go around a mountain. It's going to go through soft soil before it goes through rock. It's just how you can predict it, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the babbling brook that you expected, right? So that's the only thing is I do mess with it, but I mess with it less, and it's more of the spell itself will do the thing that makes the most sense. And that's mainly just because, again, I don't necessarily like the idea of giving that like absolute control, but that's only because that's god level magic. If you want the absolute control of what I think happens, then go become a god, get to immortality, and then that's what happens, right? But as a mortal, nobody wants that. And I mean that, like, in the game, you know, in High Point, nobody wants mortals to be able to just
do whatever they want,
get what they want, because that's the problem. Is mortals, the thing about mortals,
if you could do it, anybody else could do it.
True, but not just that. The thing about mortals, at least in High Point, more High Point history, right? This is all metagaming. This is all cool stuff because this is all about High Point. In the mindset of High Point and the hierarchy of things, humans do not lack imagination. They lack foresight. That's the biggest issue that's the biggest argument in the divine community when it comes to granting mortals magic, and why there's a big divide, and why that they wanted to take away the control that mortals had once had. That's why the Third Great War was such a big deal, right? Or the Second Great War, dividing what mortal power was. Because the idea is mortals are not limited in any capacity to imagination, right? They have the ability to do these things. The problem is they lack the foresight. So a human who makes a wish spell, if you could give a mortal the ability to wish for exactly what they wanted, that could be great. But the problem is humans aren't, mortals, I keep saying humans, mortals aren't designed to think long term, right? They're not designed to think about the knock-on effects on a galactic scale, let alone a global scale, right? I mean, how many adventurers drop 100 gold in a town that the highest wage is 1 gold a month? And you just come in and like, hey, here's 100 gold. You could literally disrupt an entire economy doing that. You know what I mean? Like, imagine just going into a village with 200 people and giving one person $100,000 and just leaving. You know what I mean? Or giving like 5 people $1 million and just being like, goodbye. Like, just totally disrupts the entire concept of and adventurers do this all the time. Like in video or in D&D, this happens all the time. You don't really, you think about, you just go into a poor place and you just start dropping money everywhere, but you don't really think about, like, you could actually ruin someone. Like, you could literally out of nowhere, you could accidentally tip someone more than the mayor makes. You could accidentally make the dude at the tavern or your blacksmith the most powerful guy in town simply because you tipped him.
Yes, but I will say also, how many times does somebody who gets paid stupid amounts of money still live paycheck to paycheck? I'm not,
but you can storytell it, but yeah, the idea that you can do that. So right,
yes,
I look at it the same way as that's how they look at in terms of like power with mortals, right? Mortals don't think that far ahead. They don't think that dropping 10 gold to a guy that makes 1 gold a month is a problem. They're like, hey, I'm just helping him out. I'm like, you just realized he could retire now. What if he retires? And what if the entire town now loses his skill set? Right? Like that's those kind of knock-on effects. So when gods look at the wish spell, they're like, if mortals had the ability to do what we can do, just any god can just be like, I want this exactly, like, perfectly detailed, and boom, it's there in an instant. But a god has responsibility. They have the idea of foresight. They have eons of patience and memory. And the idea is even impulsively, there's still the concept that on a god level, even an impulse had time to think, right?
Yeah.
So it's just that idea of why give the mortals the ability to burn down the town if they don't really understand that if they burn it down, there's nothing left. If they truly can't understand that, why give them the option? That's where I kind of believe in building out those limitations, right? Like you said, with the wish spell, there is a built-in way that because the mortals made the spell, there's a way they could basically overload yourself, your internal circuitry, and burn you out of that spell or worse. I actually have it built in to where, depending on how bad you roll, it can be everything from you just lose the that spell to all 9th level spells. It could damage, it could scar you so bad, it's kind of like getting burned so bad, even small amounts of heat hurt.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, to where you could actually certain high level spells, because in 2nd edition they have a thing called spell fail, where you have a chance to fail your spell.
Yes.
So especially if you spell fail with wish spell, then you do another roll to see how badly you fail. If you like massively fuck up, you could actually lose contact to that spell. All 9th level spells, you can technically, if it's bad enough, and if you were, doing enough to cause enough energy to build up, you could theoretically knock yourself down to as low as like 5th level spells. Like you have no more access. Again, theoretically, if all the stars aligned and you royally fucked up in the absolute worst possible way at the worst possible time, you could theoretically knock yourself out of magic. Like, magic itself just hurts. Just literally, cantrips would hurt. Auras of magic would hurt. You were so scarred, magic itself just hurts. Magical items would hurt you just by being in you couldn't even hold your own magical sword. Theoretically, that's the kind of scarring you can get. Now, not granted, that usually wouldn't happen on the wish spell. That's why I say theoretically. But there are magical scarring that could literally get you so scarred that magic itself, just the very essence of it, hurts you. And believe me, that's not a curse you want. Because think about how much magic is really in a world of fantasy.
Magic is everywhere.
Oh, I've been not paying attention to chat. What has been going on in chat? Okay, so that was more about Decker, so make players know the words correctly. Yeah, I always have the words correctly, depending on the type of one you do. Sometimes it'll have to be in writing. Sometimes it can just be, outward. Depends on where you're getting the wish from. Depends on the severity. The more powerful the wish, the more I put into it, right? Like if you just have like a ring of wishes or like the bare minimum wish, you can usually say that like in character. But like if you get like a DM wish, you get like an out of game like
a
DM wish, that has to be done in writing. That one is a full on review process. Like that one has like
Dobbs/wish. What kind of wish was that? I feel like that was a player wish or a character wish.
I think you had a character. I think you had an in-game wish.
Yeah.
From something. Yeah, repercussions are always fun. And again, it just depends on the type of repercussions that you want to do. Like I said, if you're going up against a god that doesn't want you to do stuff, yeah, they're going to intentionally do everything they can. But again, that's intent. Magic's not intentful. Magic's not intelligent. So when magic fucks with your spell, it's not because it wanted to or I wanted to. It's because I'm trying to look for, again, magic is least resistance. It can do anything, but it's going to do it in the least, energy expensive way.
Right.
It's not gonna, there's no reason for it to create an entire secondary universe. Like think about this. A magic spell, if you wanted the wish spell to say, if you wanted, let's say this great magical item, right? You wanted that from history. You could be like, I want this item. I know it exists here. I want to have it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the wish spell could, theoretically, spawn an entire universe, wait for billions of eons until things evolved, creatures discovered magic, or spawn infinite universes until an equal universe like ours created the same magical item, got to the same power level, then destroyed that entire universe, ripped that item out of it, and planted it in your hand. It could theoretically do that, or it could just teleport that item to you, or it could just take molecules from around the area and form it into the same shape, right? Like the ideology behind what this spell can do versus what it's going to do.
Right.
It's not about its limit in power. It's about again, you could divert an entire ocean, an entire river, but more likely you're just going to create a couple streams. It's going to do what it wants to do. And that's why I like the idea of, again, like I said before, it's not so much about me controlling it and not letting the players get what they want. It's more about creating that dynamicism, right? I don't want every player who says the same thing to get the same result. I want them to get a result that's keen and cued for their story,
Right.
that affects them personally and that they are going to enjoy, right? And imagine that too. Imagine you finally get people who are like, I wished once and I said this and this is what happened. And just imagine you have another player who does that and something else happens. Imagine the stories they're going to get to tell each other. Like, what happened when you did it? Well, I can't wait to make that wish. I want to see what happens to me. You know what I mean? Like, I think it creates much more of a personalized story than just kind of knowing what to expect.
Sure.
Is that the right way to do it? I don't know.
There's no such thing as a right way.
It's just the way that I do it. Oh, I was on the wrong. I closed Discord and I was on the wrong thing for a minute. All right. Well, that's been some fun little chit chat. We got some things posted in Discord. Thank you all so much for doing that. I will take a look at that soul a little bit later. We actually got to the 2:30 mark. All right. Well, I'll snooze the ads coming up because we don't need no ads at the end of the day.
We don't need no stinking ads.
All right. So next week we have Pokeniners item. This Friday we have the history of enchanting. We are 4,000 points into the community stream. Only need 15. We're probably going to get that probably by the third stream, guaranteed.
Probably.
So, hopefully y'all have had a fantastic weekend. And I hope you guys have a great week ahead of you. We'll be back on Friday, normal scheduling time. I don't think Kage's out anymore, so I think he's going to be with us for the next couple streams. If you see me online, I'm probably just playing games. Come in, say hi, chit chat with us. We do need a hydrate. Thank you so much. A hydrate for the road cart. Thank you.
Please and thank you.
And also, do not forget, everybody, that Kage also now is streaming on his own every Tuesday, doing some dev background stuff for Misfit Gamer Studios, as well as just learning different kinds of coding, different languages, and things of that sort. So go check him out if you can. If you see him live, give him some love.
As long as my computer will allow. Truly.
There you go. Go check him out as soon as you can. And he will, so as long as his computer's, not going to be crapping out on him and giving him any problems.
So rude.
Hey, you know what, though? Try a couple different things. I don't know how often you have your camera on, but if you do normally have your camera on, try to turn your camera off.
I don't. I never have it on.
Gotcha.
Specifically when I'm doing those kind of streams, like it's just my voice. I have that little thing that I got set up that flashes whenever
I do like that
I
you
talk.
have that set up. That's so good.
It's super cool. I've seen a couple other people do it. I want to change the settings on it so it actually flashes a little bit better, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, we'll get there. All right, y'all. Well, hey, have a great rest of your weekend. We will be back on Friday. Again, hope you guys enjoyed the stream. And if you have anything that you guys want to submit it via the Discord, and we will slot it in for a review.
Indeed.
All right, y'all. Have a great rest of your night. Cheers.
Deuces, my friends.